Chapter 1084. Han Kongquan was still fuming with rage. Just as he was about to argue, a figure suddenly appeared behind him. Then, the man kicked him and said in a furious and aggrieved tone, "Go. Go to hell." It was none other than Hui Yunfeng. Han Kongquan was kicked flying into the air and smashed into the high platform of Thousand Mountains sect with a loud bang. No one knew whether it was because of the sudden turn of events that the crowd could not react in time or because Han Kongquan was not very popular, but no one picked him up. He smashed hard on the steps and rolled down. Then, he screamed like a pig being slaughtered. The crowd was shocked and stunned. Who is this? How dare he beat someone up? Isn't he looking down on everyone here? And why is he so angry and aggrieved? Why are you so angry and aggrieved? Who is he? Everyone looked over and saw Deacon Hui Yunfeng standing proudly in the middle of the arena. Looking around, he said in a cold voice, "Attention, everyone. Once the outcome of the battle is decided, you must leave the arena immediately. Don't delay, and don't speak rudely. If anyone violates this rule again, not only will the person be expelled from the arena, but his sect will also be expelled from the arena." As soon as he said that, all the people present kept quiet out of fear. It turned out that the deacon had lost his temper. Obviously, Han Kongquan's behavior just now had crossed the deacon's bottom line. They had to take it as a warning. In fact, it made sense. Han Kongquan's behavior just now was really infuriating. No wonder he had provoked the deacon to attack him. However, many people had more doubts in their minds. Over the years, as the deacon of the Golden Palace, Hui Yunfeng has come to preside over the competition several times, and it's not like he has never lost his temper before. Not only did he lose his temper this time, but he also cursed someone. This is a little unusual. After saying that, Hui Yunfeng went back without saying another word. But the people of Thousand Mountains sect felt ashamed. How could there be any glory in this? Their eldest senior brother, eldest disciple, and eldest grand disciple had all been defeated, and they were cursed by the deacon, who had almost brought disaster to their entire sect. This matter was simply, Han Kongquan calmed down and came to Du Yangfan timidly. But before he could say anything to defend himself, Du Yangfan's face darkened and he growled angrily in a low voice, "Get the hell out of here." Beside him, Yin Yang said amiably, "Sigh, sect leader Du, it was only a moment of carelessness on your disciple's part just now. Why must you be so harsh? Young people are inevitably lacking in experience. After today's battle, they will definitely be more perfect. Taking 10,000 steps back, your disciple's strength is not weak at all. At least, in my opinion, he is even stronger than my disciple. This battle is really not a crime of fighting, it is an unfair victory. If they were to fight again, it is still unknown who would be the winner." At this point, he took the opportunity to nod at Han Kongquan and said, "Brother Han, please don't take it to heart. Victory and defeat are common in battles. You didn't lose this battle because of your strength, but because of your lack of experience. It's a great lesson for you." At this moment, Du Yangfan felt a sweetness in his throat, and he nearly spat out a mouthful of blood. Victory and defeat are commonplace? How can the battle in your family have anything to do with the ranking of the celestial luck banners? Also, I don't think I'm seeing things. How old are you? It's still uncertain whether you're as old as that disappointing Han Kongquan. Don't you have the cheek to lecture me like an old man? The second match. Hui Yunfeng's voice was filled with indescribable gloom. It was like a volcano that was about to erupt. "I'm so aggrieved. I'm even more aggrieved than Thousand Mountains sect. Thousand Mountains sect can still vent their anger, but I..." "Sect leader Yun, what do you think of the second match?" Du Yangfan looked at Yun Yang. The second match was supposed to be a match between the backbone. But now, Du Yangfan wanted to change it to a match of formations. It was obvious that Han Kongquan's defeat had disrupted his plan, and he urgently needed a victory to stabilize the overall situation. He had to win the second match cleanly. Otherwise, the next 3 battles would all be fierce battles, and the kind where the chances of winning were slim. Yin Yang smiled gently and said, "As you wish. Didn't I say before that we'll fight according to sect leader Du's order?" His words were still conventional, but the sarcasm in his voice was thick and undisguised. As a sect with a higher ranking than residents of 9 Supremes, Du Yangfan's Thousand Mountains sect had devised a more favorable order of battle for them at the last minute. Although it was not very upright, it was still within the rules. But now, they had changed their order at the last minute, which was tantamount to changing one's order in the morning. It was an unbearable behavior, and there was no room for argument. Du Yangfan's face heated up. He turned to look at Yun Yang and pretended to be generous as he said, "Sect leader Yun, my sect has 7 people in total, which is a little too much. I hope you can forgive me. I'll apologize in advance." Yin Yang flashed a gentle smile. "Not at all, not at all. The art of a battle formation is to integrate everyone's combat power to fight. Your sect's battle formation only has 7 people, how could it be more? My residence's battle formation is made up of 9 people. I should be the one to apologize and apologize." Du Yangfan was taken aback. 9 people? F***ck, you have more people than us. Do you want to send all of them? His expression changed abruptly as he said, "The number of people does not mean the strength of the fighting strength. The foundation of a battle formation depends on the cooperation." Yin Yang nodded slowly and said, "Sect leader Du is right. You've hit the nail on the head." Du Yangfan's face turned blue when he heard Yun Yang's words. He turned his head and said, "7 disciples, step forward." At Du Yangfan's order, the 7 young disciples of Thousand Mountains sect, led by Han Kongquan, took a step forward in unison. Yin Yang also turned to look at them and said, "Except for Lu Changman, the others take a step forward." Yin Xiuxin, Sun Mingxiu, Hu Xiaofan, Bai Yexing, and the other 8 disciples stepped forward at the same time, leaving Lu Changman alone. Yin Yang glanced at them and said, "Sun Mingxiu, coordinate with us. Bai Yexing, attack freely. Yin Xiuxin, guard the 5th earth position and resist all the enemy's attacks. Go." "Yes." The 9 disciples of the residents of 9 Supremes answered in unison and flew down together. Each of them was dressed in white, and as they flew out together, they floated down like a large group of white clouds. Only the purple belt around Yun Xiuxin's waist was the most dazzling, like a red dot in a sea of greenery. Han Kongquan stared at Yun Xiuxin with hatred in his eyes, which were filled with the cruel green of a hungry wolf. Without waiting for the sect leader's order, he waved his hand and flew down with his junior brothers, making no secret of his desire to start the battle as soon as possible. 7 stars formation. Han Kongquan cried out. As soon as the 7 disciples landed in the field, they had already lined up in the position of the Big Dipper. Han Kongquan's cultivation base was second to none among them, and he was in the position of Migres, the leader of the 7 stars. As soon as he got into the formation, he drew his sword and prepared to fight. Obviously, he had learned his lesson from the fight just now. This time, before the battle began, he had his sword in his hand and dared not to be careless anymore. His killing intent was revealed. Killing formation. Han Kongquan looked sideways at Yun Xiuxin and whispered. Chapter 1085. When they heard Han Kongquan's words, a fierce gleam flashed across the eyes of the other 6 people. The study of formation Dao was divided into different categories, each with its own ingenuity. Generally speaking, it could be divided into maze formations, trap formations, and killing formations. The first type of maze formation was mainly used to block the target's 5 senses, and its lethality was relatively weak, so it was usually only used to block the enemy's way. The second type of trap formation was much more lethal than maze formation, and it used ingenious formations to enhance one's fighting strength while trapping and sealing the enemy. However, since this type of formation was called trapping, it naturally focused on trapping. The battle might be dangerous, but the goal was to win. When the outcome was clear, they would stop. This was also the common coping pattern used by Han Kongquan and others in the past. As for the third type of killing formation, it was the formation that was deduced to the most extreme and extreme degree. With just a thought, it was filled with murderous intent. It was a situation where there was no chance of survival. Even though the battle of the celestial luck banner had the magical effect of resurrection, anyone who suddenly experienced death would suffer a heavy blow to their mind. Many of those who had endured the blow would have their state of mind weakened, and their future cultivation path would be more bumpy and bumpy. This was especially true for the younger generation of disciples. No matter how talented they were, their state of mind was inevitably much inferior to that of adults. Many of them died prematurely and had no successor in their cultivation path. Therefore, unless it was necessary, the disciples of Thousand Mountains sect, who were known for their formation Tao, rarely used killing formations, lest they could not hold back and make enemies for no reason. What Han Kongquan said just now was equivalent to using this formation to kill the younger generation of disciples of residents of Nine Supremes. His intention was vicious. Yun Xiuxin, who was on the opposite side, cried out, "Battle formation of 9 peaks." As soon as Yun Xiuxin and the others landed on the ground, they quickly divided into 9 positions. The formation that the disciples of residents of 9 Supremes had arranged was obviously very different from the regular formation. Except for Sun Mingxiu, who was in the center, the other 8 formed a circle, with Yun Xiuxin in the lead, facing the opponent's 7 stars formation. Bai Yexing was 1 position away from Yun Xiuxin, and Hu Xiaofan was 1 position away from him. If there were only 3 of them, they would form a triangle. Unlike Han Kongquan's order in a low voice, Yun Xiuxin shouted with a murderous aura, "Battle formation of 9 peaks, killing formation." The little girl was full of murderous intent. "I'm invincible. Leave no one alive. Here." The 8 junior brothers and junior sisters answered in unison. Yin Yang, who was watching the battle from the spectator's stand, was exasperated. What did the little girl mean by that? "Invincible as long as I'm here, no one shall be spared? What do you mean by, I am invincible?" On the other side, the faces of the 7 disciples of Thousand Mountains sect darkened. "We were only secretly arranging it, but you guys were so brazen." Han Kongquan furiously pointed his sword at them and said, "Spare no one? Not knowing the immensity of heaven and earth. Let's see who gets annihilated." Almost at the same time, Yun Xiuxin pointed her fair and tender little finger impatiently and said, "Kill them." The 2 battle formations suddenly collided with each other in the next moment. It was also at this moment that Sun Mingxiu, who was surrounded by the 8 disciples of the 9 Supremes, suddenly let out a long hum, "Birds of the same breath and branches, a cold sword." Before his voice had died away, his hands had already stretched to the left and right. At the same time, Bai Yexing and Hu Xiaofan each took one of Sun Mingxiu's hands, while the other hand was placed on the shoulder of another junior brother next to him, while Qing Jiejie put one hand on Yun Xiuxin. Yun Xiuxin let out a fierce cry and thrust out her sword without moving. Han Kongquan, who had been fighting with formations for a long time, did not know that his opponent was using a gathering technique. He snorted disdainfully and said in a deep voice, "Stars scatter." The 7 stars battle formation regrouped. It seemed that the 7 people were running in all directions in a disorderly manner, but in fact, they had dodged the sharp edge of the residents of 9 Supremes formation and trapped the 9 disciples in their own formation. The so-called running in all directions was just a camouflage to regroup the formation. Your so-called drunken maniac battle formation only has one tip. How can it deal with the siege of 7 of us at the same time? In the formation of 9 peaks, Sun Mingxiu's eyes flickered with a faint smile as he said, "Sweep all before you." At the same time, the 8 disciples withdrew their hands, which were connected to the other disciples. However, this time, he didn't just pull his hand back. At the instant he pulled his hand back, he struck out again. All of them struck out with their palms, but the power of these 8 palms was extraordinary. Such a powerful palm strike should not have been unleashed by a group of junior disciples. How could this be possible? The people from various sects were all experienced and knowledgeable, and their eyesight was sharp. They saw through the momentum in an instant, but they were puzzled. No matter how profound the formation was and how it could greatly increase everyone's fighting strength, there was still a limit to each person's true strength. How could the attacks of the 8 disciples of Residents of 9 Supremes be so powerful? They were several times stronger than their own strength. How could they know that the key to this change was Sun Mingxiu, who was in the center of the 8 disciples? At this moment, Sun Mingxiu looked normal and stood still, but if one took a closer look, one would find that there was steam rising from his head, and his face was pale and bloodless. It turned out that in that moment just now, he had borrowed all his mystical qi. That was why Yun Xiuxin and the other 7 disciples, with the added power of the formation, could unleash a palm strike that was far beyond their limit. The attack just now had shocked everyone, but it had also turned Sun Mingxiu into an empty shell. However, his effort was enough to lock down the outcome of the battle. At the right moment, the 8 disciples around Sun Mingxiu struck out with their maximum strength, and with the 50% increase in strength from the 9 peaks formation, they attacked the opponent's 7 stars battle formation. Yun Xiuxin took the lead and confronted Han Kongquan. Their swords collided violently. Han Kongquan was about to shout to show his existence and increase his momentum, but he felt the power of the attack from the opposite side pressing down on him like an avalanche, and the shout was forced back into his stomach. Knowing that the situation was not good, he mustered all his mystical qi to resist the attack with all his might. If he, who was in the main position, could not suppress the formation and took a step back, the 7 stars battle formation would be completely defeated. His response was undoubtedly correct, and he had given it his all without the slightest bit of negligence. However, what he was facing now was a tyrannical power that exceeded his limits. Even if he tried his best to hold on, and even pushed back, blood was already gushing out of his 7 apertures. His situation was indescribably bleak. However, compared to the other members of the 7 stars battle formation, Han Kongquan was in the best condition. The other members of the formation were also facing the same level of power, and their fighting strength was obviously not as strong as Han Kongquan. Although Han Kongquan could still put up a desperate fight, the others did not even have the chance to put up a desperate fight. As a result, muffled grunts rang out incessantly in the surroundings. In just one blow, the 7 stars battle formation, which was full of confidence and claimed to be invincible, had suffered an unprecedented blow. Chapter 1086. The disciples of Residents of 9 Supremes did not follow up with another attack. Instead, they retreated together, holding their swords in one hand to guard against the enemy's counterattack while putting the other hand on Sun Mingxiu. Then, Sun Mingxiu let out a long chant and said, "The bright moon of the 5 lakes waves together." Before his voice had died away, Yun Xiuxin, Bai Yexing, Hu Xiaofan, Duan Mufeng, and Lin Xiaoro suddenly crossed paths and pounced in the opposite direction of where they were. In an instant, they had changed their targets and launched a new wave of attacks. Boom! Boom! 5 loud bangs rang out one after another. Through the first wave of battle, although Sun Mingxiu had exerted his qi to the limit to enhance the combat power of his senior brothers and junior brothers and was temporarily exhausted, his eyesight was not inferior at all. He immediately judged that among the 7 stars battle formation, Han Kongquan, who was in the main position of Migres, and another disciple of Thousand Mountains sect named Yu Heng were the strongest. Although he had used Yun Xiuxin and Bai Yexing, the strongest disciples on his side, to attack them separately and gain some results, they were not able to achieve a full victory. Therefore, in the second round, they avoided the strong and attacked the weak, using the 5 stronger disciples on their side to attack the 5 weaker disciples on the other side. As for the 7 stars battle formation, because of the interconnecting effect of the formation, when one person was attacked, the others would share the burden and distribute the damage. In an instant, all 7 people in the 7 stars battle formation coughed up a mouthful of blood without exception. They had overloaded themselves, and once the formation backfired, all 7 of them would be injured at the same time. However, the advantages and disadvantages of the 2 waves of attacks were clear at a glance. The disciples of the Residents of 9 Supremes used the attacking will of Sun Mingxiu, who was sitting in the middle, as the starting point. Their words were followed by their movements, and they attacked swiftly. Not only did each strike contain a force that was several times stronger than their own, but they also targeted the opponent's weak points and succeeded one after another. Although the Seven Stars battle formation had its marvelous effect, it was too shabby to withstand a single blow from the residents of Nine Supreme's Nine Peaks formation. The 7 people who suffered the backfire of the formation staggered back at the same time. Han Kongquan roared desperately, trying to turn the tide, but it was already too late. It was just like a cornered dog jumping over a wall and talking nonsense. Sun Mingxiu stood up with lightning in his eyes and shouted 3 times, "Unified Jianghu and change the world." Then, the 9 of them quickly adjusted their formation and stood side by side. At the same time, they used the body and sword fusion technique. At this moment, the 9 sword lights were like 9 dragons swallowing water, shooting straight up into the sky for 500 feet. This kind of power could only be unleashed by a saint-level cultivator. Now, however, the sword lights of the 9 disciples of the residents of 9 Supremes were the same, advancing in unison. It was like 9 saints had attacked at the same time, and their momentum was shocking. This attack had combined the strength of all 9 people that formed the 9 Peaks Grand Formation into one spot, and then doubled their battle prowess. Only then was it able to form such a terrifying might. In the face of this wave of tyrannical attacks, the miserable cries from the other side had only just sounded before they disappeared. Only flesh and blood scattered all over the sky. On the other hand, after killing all their enemies, the 9 disciples of the residents of 9 Supremes rushed out of the square's battle formation at top speed with the momentum of the body and sword fusion technique. Along the way, they flew 3,000 feet across the sky and returned to the grandstand of the residents of 9 Supremes. The 9 disciples bowed at the same time and said respectfully, "Fortunately, we didn't fail you." There was only scattered flesh and blood on the ground. There was not even a single intact bone, and even the head had been smashed into pieces. Everyone was silent for a long time. All the people from the 8 sects were shocked by the joint attack of the 9 disciples of the residents of 9 Supremes and the brilliant sword light that shot 500 feet into the sky. The level of a saint. The 9 Peaks Grand Formation could actually elevate the strength of the 9 disciples of the residents of 9 Supremes to the level of a saint. Even Thousand Mountains sect, which had always been known for its formations, had ended up like this. How could the other sects deal with it? Compared to the 9 Peaks Grand Formation, the 7 Stars Battle Formation was like the difference between heaven and earth. Someone murmured under his breath, "We are of the same breath and branch. A cold sword that sweeps through all directions, the bright moon of the 5 lakes waves together, unifying the martial world and changing the world." Residents of 9 Supremes. Residents of 9 Supremes. Du Yangfan's face was as pale as a dead man's at the moment. The other disciples of Thousand Mountains sect were also disheartened, as if they had lost their parents. They no longer looked as if everything was under their control. They had lost again. They had lost again. And they had lost in the battle that they were most confident of winning. In the field, the 7 disciples of the 7 Stars Battle Formation had recovered because of the strange phenomenon, but their faces were pale and their eyes were full of fear. 2 or 3 of them were even trembling. The reason was that the battle just now had completely scared them out of their wits. This was hell. This was not the mortal world. Among them, the one who had the greatest reaction was none other than Han Kongquan. In the short span of an hour, he had died twice. Although it wasn't a true death, the feeling of death was no different from reality. There wasn't the slightest bit of falsehood. His heart was filled with indignation and unwillingness after he was killed in the first battle. After he recovered, all he could think of was to find Yin Xiuxin for revenge. Although his state of mind was unbalanced, not only was his fighting strength not damaged, it had even become stronger because of his anger. However, the subsequent development was beyond his expectation. The 7 Stars Battle Formation, which he thought was his trump card, was completely crushed by his opponent. In just 3 waves of attacks, all of them were wiped out. He had thought of killing his opponent, but instead, he was killed by his opponent. The gap between the two was so great that it could not be described with words. At this moment, he stood in the field in a daze, his body trembling, his eyes unfocused and empty as he murmured, "I'm dead. I'm dead again. I'm dead again." Suddenly, he screamed and ran back with his hands over his head. "I'm dead, I'm dead. I'm dead again. I'm dead again." After losing his state of mind several times, he was so scared that he lost his mind. Du Yangfan heaved a long sigh and slapped Han Kongquan on the back, knocking him out immediately. Then, he handed him over to the people behind him, turned around, and said bitterly, "We've lost the match of formations." On the high platform, Hui Yunfeng's voice was also mournful as he said, "Residents of 9 Supremes won the second match." Then, there was another long silence. Except for residents of 9 Supremes' own people who were celebrating, none of the other sects spoke a word. Even Golden Cauldron's sect, which ranked first, was looking at residents of 9 Supremes with fear in their eyes. They had once thought that the opponent's weakness was not a weakness, but a very powerful trump card. Almost everyone felt a chill creeping up their backs. The 9 disciples of residents of 9 Supremes were either little girls or boys, and only a few of them could be called teenagers. Their age of cultivation was destined to be short, so their real strength was naturally not very high. No matter how talented they were limited by their age of cultivation, and there was a limit to their strength. However, the residents of 9 Supremes' 9 Peaks formation could forcibly raise their strength to the Saint Realm. The true might of this grand formation was obvious, and it was truly shocking, terrifying, and astounding. Then, all the sects came to a decision. Now, the residents of 9 Supremes has even made up for its only shortcoming. If they climb all the way up later, when it's our turn to face them, no matter what we do, we must not fight them in formations. Chapter 1087. Not only would they be courting death, but they would also ruin the future of their disciples by engaging in a battle of formations. The Thousand Mountains sect was a clear example of what had happened to them. Du Yangfan sat in a daze, feeling that his mind was completely blank. Next to him, Yun Yang looked over with a smile and said, "Sect leader Du, it's time for the third match. How do you want to fight? Whether it's a battle of the backbone, a battle of free will, or some other tactics, residents of 9 Supremes is ready." Du Yangfan didn't know why, but when he heard these words, he actually shuddered, and his hair stood on end. It was a fact that they had been defeated and discouraged, but the battle of the celestial banners was not over yet. It was clear that residents of 9 Supremes intended to continue, and it was not only to defeat Thousand Mountains sect, but also to achieve a higher goal. But, how were they going to fight the third match? Now, the whole Thousand Mountains sect had clearly realized a problem. Residents of 9 Supremes was really stronger than Thousand Mountains sect, and it was much stronger, even superior in every aspect. Now, the 2 matches they had lost had proved this fact. The third match would undoubtedly become a battle of life and death. If they lost again, it meant that Thousand Mountains sect would fall to the last place among the lower-class celestial luck banners. It was a result that Thousand Mountains sect would not be happy to see, and it was even more difficult for them to accept. After all, for Thousand Mountains sect, the worst-case scenario would be 6 or at least 3 years later before their ranking would drop. But now, it was right in front of them. They could not afford to lose this match. Even if they could not avoid defeat, as long as they won this match, residents of 9 Supremes would lose the qualification to continue challenging the higher-ranking sects with the celestial luck banners because it was not a complete victory, and they would be able to earn the final benefit. Unfortunately, the thoughts in his mind were one thing, and the reality was another. How could he win the third battle? How could they ensure their victory? Du Yangfan frowned, his mind in a mess. He turned to look at the black-clothed man beside him, who had been silent all this time. The man was his senior brother, Yang Ping, the first martial arts genius that Thousand Mountains sect claimed to have seen in 1,000 years. Not only was his cultivation base 2 levels higher than Wu Qi's, but he was even stronger than the elders in Thousand Mountains sect who had been cultivating in seclusion. Without a doubt, he was the strongest expert in Thousand Mountains sect. In other words, Yang Ping was the strongest trump card of Thousand Mountains sect, their ultimate trump card. In the past, he had purposely concealed this person's strength in case he needed to act at the critical moment to turn the tide of the battle. Could it be that he had no choice but to act now? Senior Marshal Brother Yang, Du Yangfan sighed softly and said, "In the next match, the match of the backbone, how about you fight? Thousand Mountains sect can't afford to lose again. We must at least win this match." Yang Ping was expressionless. He simply said, "Okay." Then, he stood up. Du Yangfan's spirits lifted as he turned to Yun Yang and said, "In the third match, the match of the backbone, my senior brother Yang Ping will fight. What do you think, Master Yun?" Du Yangfan had to admit that Du Yangfan was the leader of a sect after all. Even though the enemy was already at the gate of the sect and the situation was full of crisis, he was still clinging to the last straw and trying to maximize the efficiency of this straw. There was a reason why Du Yangfan took the initiative to introduce Yang Ping's identity and seniority. Everyone present knew that Residence of Nine Supremes was seeking to win all 5 matches, and there was no doubt about it. On the other hand, most of the strongest fighters in a sect were the elders of the sect, and the sect leader was slightly weaker. Few people of the same generation as the sect leader were so strong that they could even surpass many of the sect's elders. The current situation was clear. Yin Yang was the strongest fighter in Residence of Nine Supremes, followed by Luo Dajiang. However, these 2 men would obviously be reserved for the free match and the strongest match in the future. If Shi Wuchen, who was the second strongest fighter in Residence of Nine Supremes, were to fight this match, Du Yangfan was confident that his sect would have a 100% chance of winning based on Shi Wuchen's previous performance. Yin Yang nodded and said, "It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who fights this match. I've said it many times. So, are you still going to send Shi Wuchen, who fought the last match?" Du Yangfan asked faintly. Yin Yang gave him a strange smile and said, "Of course, not." "Good." Du Yangfan said "good" subconsciously, but he did not expect that the other party would say "of course not." His words were stuck in his throat, and he felt like he had fallen into a pit. They are not sending Shi Wuchen. Why? Isn't this the match of the backbone? Does Residence of Nine Supremes intend to send someone else to fight this match? An idea suddenly flashed across Du Yangfan's mind. I did not mention the match of sect leaders in this match, but the free match. Residence of Nine Supremes can certainly choose Luo Dajiang, who is stronger, to fight in the third match of backbone, and Yun Yang himself will fight in the final match. Why not? Won't our chances of winning be higher this way? Du Yangfan asked himself. If it were him, he would never give up such a high chance of winning. However, if Luo Dajiang were to face Yang Ping, then their 100% chance of victory would plummet. Based on the battle prowess that Luo Dajiang had displayed, Yang Ping wasn't just not certain of victory. In fact, his chances of victory were minuscule. At this moment, Du Yangfan was so annoyed that he was about to go crazy. Yin Yang turned his head and said, "Brothers, who hasn't fought yet? Who else wants to join the match?" Me. Me. Me, Tai Qingsang, Ren Qinghuang, Kong Luoyue, and the others immediately became excited and scrambled to join the match. On the opposite side, Yang Ping raised his eyes, and a cold gleam flashed across them. Du Yangfan was also startled. Hope reappeared in his eyes, but there were still many temptations and puzzlement in them. This is a battle, a crucial battle for the position of the sect. It is a fact that Residence of Nine Supremes has won all the battles, and it is understandable that you can be very aggressive. But, why are you randomly sending someone to fight at this critical juncture? Looking at these people shouting and playing rock paper scissors to decide who should go, Du Yangfan's eyes were burning with anger. How arrogant. They are too arrogant. Ha ha ha. With a long laugh, Tai Qingsang flew out and landed in the ring, throwing his head back and roaring with laughter. I've won. Ha ha ha. Kong Luoyue, who was standing opposite him and about to throw a punch, was dumbfounded. Then, his face filled with anger. I haven't even started playing rock paper scissors with you. How did you win? I've worked so hard and schemed to get into the finals, and just when I was about to fight for the last time, you just jumped out. You've won? When did you King win? Tai Ching-song. I can't believe a thick-browed, big-eyed guy like you is so despicable and shameless. Kong Luoyue was filled with grief and indignation. Next to him, Ren Xingguang and the others were laughing so hard that they almost fell. No one had expected that Tai Ching-song, who had always been honest, would have such a shameless side to him, and he did it openly without hiding it. Chapter 1088. Of course, even if they knew who was right and who was wrong, they would not pay any attention to it. They had all been defeated in the rock-paper-scissors game, and they did not like Kong Luoyue. Now that someone had plucked the fruit of Kong Luoyue's victory, they could only snicker. No matter what, as long as he was out of the arena, the outcome was set in stone, and no one could change it. As soon as Tai Ching-song appeared, the people from the other sects thought it was Luo Dajiang, who had appeared once before. After all, both of them were tall and burly, and their auras were astonishing. In particular, many people thought about the rules of the competition set by Du Yangfan and thought of the key point. Now that Luo Dajiang was sent to fight, it was clearly within reason. What was there to be surprised about? On the other side, Yang Ping rose to his feet slowly. He held his sword in one hand and walked down from his high platform in a wobbly manner. According to his position, Yang Ping was supposed to fight in the match of the number 1 expert. Although he had no choice but to be sent to fight in the middle, he was still not used to it, and he was a little mentally unbalanced. Tai Ching-song stood there like an iron tower, watching coldly as Yang Ping walked toward him. At this moment, Tai Ching-song's heart was filled with strong confidence. This Yang Ping is definitely no match for me. Coincidentally, neither of them was talkative. They only stood in the arena for a moment before they began to fight. One of them used a sword, and the other used a huge sword. Well, the sword used by the gold-hand scholar Tai Ching-song was one size bigger than an ordinary one, 2 fingers wider and a foot longer. The weight of the entire sword was twice that of an ordinary heavy sword, and it was truly a huge sword. The battle between the two men was full of sparks from the very beginning. Back and forth, you advance and I retreat, one after another, each with their own style. Streaks of green sword energy spread in all directions. It was a sign that they were evenly matched and could no longer control their extra strength, which was why the current phenomenon of energy dissipating appeared. Yin Yang's face grew grave as he watched the current situation. Yang Ping's cultivation base was so high that it was far beyond his expectation. According to Yin Yang's prediction, the strength of everyone in the residence of 9 Supremes, including Shi Wuchen, had improved so much that he was confident that there were few opponents in the entire lower-class celestial luck banner sects. However, the man in front of him seemed to be on par with Tai Ching-song. Apart from his strength, he was not inferior to Tai Ching-song in terms of the exquisiteness of his techniques and the depth of his mystical qi. The outcome of this battle was still uncertain. I can't believe someone from a sect ranked 8th among the lower-class celestial luck banners possesses such strength. Did it mean that Thousand Mountains sect had a stronger expert to deal with the battle of the number 1 expert later? Was Du Yangfan's overall strength even stronger? Why can't I see it at all? I've underestimated the heroes of this world after all. It looks like the final goal needs to be adjusted. Yin Yang sighed. Initially, he had wanted to rush to the middle rank in one go, but looking at the situation before him, it was a little difficult. While Yin Yang was lost in his thoughts, he did not know that the upper echelons of the sects ranked 7th, 6th, and 5th were sweating profusely as they watched the battle between the two men. The previous few battles were either decided by a single saber strike, or life and death were decided by a single move. Although it was shocking and soul-stirring, it only showed that there was a great disparity in the battle strength of the two sides. They were not on the same level, and nothing more could be seen. But now, these two people were evenly matched in strength, and it suddenly let everyone know their true strength. They were the peak of the 4th-tier Saint realm. Moreover, both of them had the same strength, and neither of them was weaker than the other. With this kind of strength, in his own sect, the number one expert was probably nothing more than this. I can't believe these two sects actually have such strong experts. It's true that Residence of Nine Supremes is a newcomer, and it's also true that its strength is unknown. But Thousand Mountains sect obviously has such a trump card, but why has it never challenged someone with a higher level? There was also the Seven Stars formation. Although Thousand Mountains sect's Seven Stars formation was crushed by Residence of Nine Supremes' Nine Peaks formation, it was still the best formation among the 10 sects with lower-class celestial luck banners in the past. It might not be the best, but it was at least in the top 3. Therefore, no matter which sect Thousand Mountains sect faced, it could win 2 matches in a row. How could it keep a low profile and endure for so long? Feeling the puzzled gazes from around him, Du Yongfan, the sect leader of Thousand Mountains sect, felt depressed. Do you think I don't want to challenge them? But the reality is that there's only one genius in Thousand Mountains sect, and his cultivation base is ridiculously high. Even if they can win 2 matches with the formation, that's all they can do. They don't have any other fighting techniques they can use, and it's still useless. Instead, they've exposed their strongest trump card. Otherwise, I'm not stupid, and I would have challenged them a long time ago. I really have no other choice now. In order to fight for the last chance of winning and even the last bit of profit, I've finally used this last trump card. Who am I going to tell about my depression? Then, clang! The 2 swords broke at the same time. The front blades of the swords flew out in the same direction, but the 2 men were pushed back by the strong impact. Tai Qingsong burst out laughing. Suddenly, the clothes on his arms were torn to shreds, while his hands flashed with a golden light. Are those the golden hands of the gold-handed scholar? Outside, someone let out an unexpected cry of surprise. Tai Qingsong rushed forward at a super high speed like a bolt of lightning. As he rose and fell one of his hands, a brilliant golden light could be seen, and the power of his attack was even stronger than before. Opposite him, Yang Ping's hand was already on his spatial ring. As long as he had a moment to spare, he could take out his sword and fight again. However, Tai Qingsong's golden hand had arrived in an instant, and there was no time to spare. With no other choice, he could only step back while gathering his mystical energy and raising his palm to meet the attack. With a loud boom, Tai Qingsong was thrown back into the air by the counterattack of Yang Ping's strongest mystical energy. However, when he landed again, he did not hesitate to launch a new wave of attack. The golden light shone brilliantly, illuminating the whole arena as if it was made of gold. Chapter 1089. The 2 waves of attacks were closely connected without any gap. Like a goshawk, Tai Qingsong kept falling and swooping down. Then, he would be knocked back up, fall again, and launch another attack. After 5 or 6 times in a row, Yang Ping had staggered back hundreds of feet. He could feel that his opponent was rising and falling. Although his feet never touched the ground, and it was difficult for him to borrow strength, his mystical chi attacks were getting stronger and stronger, and the pressure from his palms was getting heavier. Gradually, Yang Ping had a feeling that he could not hold on any longer. Tai Qingsong fell again, and an even stronger and fiercer attack followed. Yang Ping not only had a profound cultivation base, but he also had rich combat experience. He knew that if this went on, his opponent would be able to borrow the force of the aftershock to fly back up, and if this went on for a long time, he would not be able to escape defeat. The moment he realized this, he gritted his teeth and gathered all the mystical chi in his body, then threw out a palm strike. With another explosion, Tai Qingsong was knocked high into the air again, but Yang Ping had retreated 200 feet in an instant, then moved 100 feet to the left at top speed. With a clang, he finally held the second sword in his hand. The situation seemed to have changed again, but Tai Qingsong, who was in midair, still chose to continue the attack. He suddenly spread his arms, turned around, and swooped down like a huge goshawk. At the same time, the sword in Yang Ping's hand flashed with a threatening light. Tai Qingsong did not dodge, as if he had ignored the counterattack. He maintained his original momentum and kept bombarding with a pair of golden palms. Yang Ping roared and slashed out with his sword. Tai Qingsong sneered and met the attack with one hand. In the arena, Hui Yunfeng took a deep breath and said, "The outcome is about to be decided." Both sides have prepared some moves for this attack, and they are using their lifetime cultivation base. It's a wonderful battle. Ding Byuk and Yu Bunning were also experts in cultivation, so they watched the battle intently and did not look as nervous as Hui Yunfeng. Although the battle in front of them was related to hundreds of top-grade spiritual jades, the two of them were already prepared to lose the bet at the beginning of the battle between the two sections. Now that the situation had changed and was developing in an unprecedentedly good direction, they were almost sure of the victory. They didn't care too much about the outcome of the battle. Instead, they cared more about the brilliance of the battle. No matter who won in the end, it wouldn't affect the brilliance of the battle. For a moment, the battlefield was filled with sword energy, and Tai Qingsong's dazzling golden hands were waving freely as he approached Bufang like a bolt of lightning. As expected, the two of them once again engaged in the most extreme head-on collision. Yang Ping let out a furious roar. The already magnificent sword energy rose by 30% and pierced Tai Qingsong's palm. However, Tai Qingsong's expression did not change in the face of such a serious injury. Instead of retreating, his pierced hand moved forward and grabbed the sword, letting the golden blood flow everywhere. His other free hand, however, was like a mountain-splitting axe, smashing down violently with a crazy momentum. Yang Ping sneered. His left hand, which was not holding a sword, suddenly held a sword again and thrust it toward Tai Qingsong's heart. It was fast, accurate, and ruthless. Not only does this man have a profound cultivation base, but his swordsmanship is also brilliant. He can even wield a sword with both hands at will. How can an ordinary man compare to him? Yang Ping's intention was simple and clear: you can hit me with your palm, but the price is that I will kill you with my sword when you are hit. Tai Qingsong's expression did not change, but he twisted his body abruptly and maintained the same momentum. His palm was still falling crazily, while Yang Ping's sword pierced through his right chest and back with great force. If Yang Ping had a moment's delay, Ong Ping could have injected a large amount of mystical energy into Tai Qingsong's body and detonated it. With their cultivation bases being about the same, Tai Qingsong would have been dead for sure. Unexpectedly, the moment Tai Qingsong was hit by the sword, he twisted his body again and locked the sword with his muscles and bones. Then, just as the mystical energy on Yang Ping's sword was about to enter his body, his palm fell hard on Yang Ping's right shoulder. Kacha, the bones in Yang Ping's right shoulder were instantly shattered, and half of his chest was almost smashed as well. Tai Qingsong's swords were locked, his shoulder was broken, and his mystical qi became even more chaotic. But Yang Ping was really amazing. Although he could no longer guide his mystical qi to detonate Tai Qingsong's body, he immediately let go of the sword with his left hand and punched the hilt. The sword regained its momentum, and the entire blade stabbed into Tai Qingsong's body until the hilt was gone. His fist, on the other hand, smashed into the wound on Tai Qingsong's chest without losing its momentum. A loud thud and a crack could be heard. Tai Qingsong's ribs were broken, which further injured him. However, Tai Qingsong did not retreat. Even though he was already seriously injured, he still took a step forward and slammed his head into Yang Ping's forehead. Yang Ping's skull cracked with a crack, causing him to cry out in pain. Then, he retaliated by slamming his knee into Tai Qingsong's lower abdomen. It was only then that the two of them separated, but they were still very close to each other, almost touching each other. At this moment, Tai Qingsong's pierced right hand was still tightly gripping Yang Ping's sword as he struck Yang Ping's neck with all his might. Almost at the same time, Yang Ping's left hand had turned into a knife and was aimed at Tai Qingsong's neck. Obviously, he wanted to kill Tai Qingsong with one blow. Tai Qingsong grabbed Yang Ping's hand with his left hand and hit Yang Ping's forehead with his head again. Blood splattered from their foreheads at the same time. Yang Ping screamed even louder as he quickly broke free from Tai Chingsang's grip with his left hand and grabbed Tai Chingsang's neck, but Tai Chingsang hit him again. Boom! Boom! The atmosphere of the battle between the two of them was so intense that it was unbearable to watch. Blood, flesh, and even bones flew out from time to time. Yang Ping's head had been smashed like a watermelon and was no longer whole. Blood gushed out from all over the place. Tai Chingsang's condition was not much better. There was almost no part of his body that was intact, and there was a hole in his right chest, but he still kept hitting Yang Ping's head. Bam! 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 Every time Tai Chingsang and Yang Ping collided, the hearts of all the spectators skipped a beat. Their mouths were dry, and they were terrified. A long time later, both of them fell down together. But they were still moving. Well, it should be said that they were wriggling, desperately trying to get up. Yang Ping kept moving, and after a few movements, he suddenly fell to the ground and stopped moving. Tai Chingsang was panting heavily and kept vomiting blood and pieces of internal organs, but he managed to prop himself up with his left hand. Looking at the motionless body in front of him, Tai Chingsang burst out laughing. After coughing out a mouthful of sticky blood, he said in a hoarse voice, "I've won." Before his voice could fade away, he fell to the ground and stopped breathing. Chapter 1090. As far as the result of the battle was concerned, both of them had died together. However, Yang Ping was the first to die, while Tai Chingsang announced his victory when he stood up for the last time and uttered his last words. Even if Tai Chingsang died in the end, it was still considered his victory. There was no doubt about this, and no one could question it. The faces of everyone in Thousand Mountains sect turned pale, and there was only despair in their eyes. Was Thousand Mountains sect going to lose its position just like that? This. 3 battles, 3 defeats. Not even the last piece of cloth was left. 2 hours ago, we were still in 8th place. Now, we are the 9th, the last of the lower-class celestial luck banners. Du Yangfan covered his chest with his hands. He felt a terrible pain in his chest, so much so that he wanted to die. However, although the faces of the people from Thousand Mountains sect were unsightly, they were not the most unsightly among those present, because the person with the most unsightly expression was the one who had stepped forward at this moment. 3rd match. Residents of 9 Supremes, wins. Hui Yinfeng's voice was mixed with a kind of disheartened dejection. The pain in his heart at this moment was like 10,000 arrows piercing his heart. My heart is broken. He lost again, losing 360 pieces of supreme-grade spiritual jades. $360. In addition to the 120 yuan he had lost earlier. 480 pieces of supreme-grade spirit jades. I don't want to live anymore, I can't live anymore. It was clearly a battle that they had a 90% chance of winning, but they still lost. Moreover, he lost cleanly and happily. Ding Byuk and Yu Bunning tried their best to maintain their composure. Big brother, you always say that a bet must be fair, and a bet must be won. We are very embarrassed, but a win is a win, and a loss is a loss. We will not be disrespectful. Hui Yinfeng's face was livid. I'll give them to you when we get back. I've left all the supreme-grade spirit jades at home, why don't you give it to him now? Yu Bunning pursed his lips and said, we know that all your top-grade spiritual jades are in your ring. Given Big Brother's character, how can he be at ease if he doesn't carry such good stuff with him? When we get back, I'm afraid it will be very difficult for us to see you again. Do I look like a shameless person who goes back on his word? Hui Yinfeng cried in grief and indignation, almost coughing up blood. You are. The two of them nodded in agreement. There was a flash of light. Tai Chingsang and Yang Ping were both revived. Their eyes were blank for a moment, and then they recalled the battle at the same time. Yang Ping's expression was extremely complicated. He said slowly, I'll seek advice from Brother Tai in the future. Tai Chingsang's eyes were full of sincerity as he said, there's still a long way to go, and I'm sure we'll meet again. Yang Ping nodded, turned around, and slowly walked back. The expression on his face did not show any sign of defeat. Instead, it was calm, and his eyes were crystal clear. He had actually benefited a lot from this battle, and it was only a matter of time before he made another breakthrough. In fact, this was inevitable. The path of cultivation was rugged and difficult, and the easiest way to make progress was to go through life and death battles. Tai Qingsong and Yang Ping's cultivation base was similar, and so was their fighting spirit and willpower. Although Tai Qingsong had won this battle, it was still a tie for both of them. Moreover, they would take another big step forward after this battle. Therefore, this battle was a great opportunity for Yang Ping. After all, with his current status, background, and strength, it was almost impossible for him to find an opponent who was on par with him and fight him in an extreme battle without causing any trouble afterward. And this battle was obviously a rare opportunity that could not be replicated. In the Celestial Luck Banner Challenge, Residents of 9 Supremes has defeated Thousand Mountains Sect, which is ranked 8th, and advanced to the next round. Hui Yunfeng announced with his heart bleeding. My heart and liver. It hurts so much. Half of my life's savings, all ended in one day, and these two little beasts have one half of it. Damn it. Will Residents of 9 Supremes continue the challenge? Yin Yang's voice was clear and loud. Yes, of course. Sect Leader Du, we still have the last 2 matches. Thousand Mountains Sect admits defeat. We don't have to fight the last 2 matches. Du Yangfan made the decision without hesitation. If Yang Ping had won the last match, he would naturally continue to fight with all his strength and try his luck. But now, he had lost all 3 matches, and his sect's demotion was a foregone conclusion. It was meaningless for him to fight the last 2 matches that he had no chance of winning. At most, he would be working for free for the 7th-ranked sect, letting them see more of Residents of 9 Supreme strength and deal with it calmly. Do we look so stupid to you? How could we do it without a certain benefit? Hui Yunfeng swallowed and said, Thousand Mountains Sect has forfeited the last 2 matches. Residents of 9 Supremes, which ranks 8th with the lower-class Celestial Luck Banners, has won all 5 matches and will automatically enter the next round. We will challenge Illusory Sword Sect, which ranks 7th. The faces of all the people from Illusory Sword Sect flickered when they heard that. Residents of 9 Supremes' morale was soaring, and its fighting strength was even more appalling. Thousand Mountains Sect had sent out all its elites, but they were still defeated. Their sect really had no confidence at all. What should they do? Yin Yang, sect leader of Residents of 9 Supremes, and Lu Qingfeng, sect leader of Illusory Sword Sect, please come up for a discussion. At the same time, the whole space fell into complete silence. In just a short period of time, Residents of 9 Supremes had won all the matches and advanced 2 levels. What was worse was that no one had figured out the strength of Residents of 9 Supremes. Whether it was Shi Wuchen in the match of the backbone or the match of the disciples or the match of the formations, none of the flaws was a flaw. All of them were extremely strong. After experiencing the new round of the match of the backbone and witnessing Tai Qingsong's fighting strength, they no longer believed that Luo Dajiang was the strongest expert of Residents of 9 Supremes after Yun Yang. So, how far could Residents of 9 Supremes advance? This was something that no one could come to a conclusion about. But, how could Residents of 9 Supremes, which had just been established for less than half a year, be so fierce? Was there any justice in this world? On the high platform, Lu Qingfeng, as the challenged party, your Illusory Sword Sect can decide the rules of the match according to the rules, Hui Yunfeng said in a businesslike manner. He glanced at Yun Yang and then hurriedly turned his head back. One look at him would make one's heart ache so much that one would rather die than make a sound. You are simply my bane. I don't want to see you. Yin Yang shuddered when he was stared at by the deacon's resentful gaze. What's going on? Why are you looking at me like that? I'm so scared to tell you. Lu Qingfeng's eyes were also complicated at the moment, and the way he looked at Yun Yang also seemed to be resentful. What tactics can I use? In the match of formations, our sect is even weaker than Thousand Mountains sect. Are we going to be killed by you? The match of the backbone and the match of the peak. Based on the strength shown by Tai Chingsang just now, none of us can defeat him. The match of the sect leaders? Forget it. I can only defeat Shi Wuchen at most. How can I be a match for Yun Yang? At most, it's the match of the disciples, and there may be a little hope. What the F***ck is there to fight? We don't have a chance of winning any of the tactics we can choose. We are bound to lose at least 3 matches. How the F***ck am I supposed to choose? As a sect leader, Lu Qingfeng had always been calm and well-behaved. But now, he was at a loss for words because of this choice. Chapter 1091. I need to discuss this with the people in my sect. Lu Qingfeng said bitterly. All right. Lu Qingfeng left. Yun Yang was still where he was. Sect leader Yun, you don't look very old, do you? Hui Yunfeng tried to find something to talk about. I'm 20 years old this year. Yun Yang nodded. I'm not young anymore. You're not young anymore? How are you not young anymore? Hui Yunfeng was shocked by the answer he received. Although he had long judged that Yun Yang was not old with his experience and judgment, he did not expect the boy to be so young. He was almost a teenager. 20 years old. A saint at the age of 20. Are you trying to scare me to death? Even in the Sacred Heart Palace, there are not many people with such a cultivation base at such an age. Just now, he thought that sect leader Yun might be an old monster pretending to be young, but he did not expect that he was really young. Sect leader Yun, you're a gifted genius. Hui Yunfeng said with great sincerity. Ding Byuk said, Big brother, why don't we bet again? We'll bet on residents of 9 Supremes. Ha. Hui Yunfeng put on a fake smile and said, you too can go wherever you want to die. Do you think I'm stupid? It's still uncertain whether Illusory Sword sect will fight or not. Maybe they will just admit defeat. Do you think I can't tell? Do you really think I'm a fool with too much money? I've fallen into the same pit twice. Do you want me to fall into it a 3rd time? You two are so mean. Meanwhile, Lu Qingfeng returned to his sect and discussed countermeasures with several higher-ups. Spittle flew everywhere as they discussed, but there was still no conclusion. After a long while, everyone lowered their heads, helplessness and humiliation overflowing on their faces. Lu Qingfeng stood up. There's no need to fight this round. Illusory Sword sect admits defeat. Admit defeat. As soon as the decision came out, it shocked the whole venue. As soon as the words came out, residents of 9 Supremes won without a fight and advanced directly to the 7th place. F***ck. The sect leader of Beast Trainer sect, who was ranked 6th, cursed. Lu Qingfeng, you're the sect leader of a sect with a lower-class celestial luck banner. You can't just admit defeat. You should at least fight, right? It was better to be beaten to death than to be scared to death, didn't you understand? To actually admit defeat without even fighting. Aren't you guys ashamed? The sect leader of Beast Trainer sect, Qin Ruogu, was so angry that his nose almost went crooked, but there was still something he wanted to say in his heart. How would we know if the residents of 9 Supreme still has hidden forces if you don't even fight? Lu Qingfeng said faintly, Illusory Sword sect is ranked 7th, only in the lower 3 grades of lower class sections. Even if we fall to 8th, we are still on the same level, and the gap is negligible. We appreciate residents of 9 Supremes, so we might as well not fight. We'll make way for our friend and save time for all the sects present. We're doing this for everyone's sake. As he spoke, he nodded at Yun Yang from afar. It meant that they were friends. Yun Yang nodded and smiled as well. I'm afraid our friendship can only last until the end of this celestial luck banner competition. It won't last much longer, he thought to himself. It seems that in addition to these people here, many of the disciples you left in your base have been killed by residents of 9 Supremes. If you can swallow such a deep hatred, I may admire you or be wary of you, but I will never regard you as a friend. Now, let's invite Qin Ruogu, the sect leader of Beast Trainer's sect, up here for a talk, said Hui Yunfeng. Then, he asked Yun Yang, sect leader Yun, do you want to challenge the residents of Beast Trainer's sect in one go today? Or do you want to rest for a day? Or do you want to fight the next day? Yun Yang was surprised. We can rest during the Celestial Luck Banner competition. Of course, we can rest, Hui Yunfeng said amiably. It's fine if there are no challenges from sects, but if there are a lot of challenges, it's possible for the competition to last for a month. Yun Yang thought for a moment and said, then let's continue the challenge tomorrow morning. Upon hearing Yun Yang's words, Qin Ruogu breathed a sigh of relief. It was also a good thing for Beast Trainer's sect to have one more night to come up with strategies and tactics. At least, they had time to plan. Now, residents of 9 Supreme's unstoppable momentum was just too frightening. He had to admit that he was under a lot of pressure. Even though residents of 9 Supremes could adjust their breath, recover their mind, and even discuss strategies after they went back, they knew very little about Beast Trainer's sect. Residents of 9 Supremes had definitely miscalculated by giving them one more night. On the same night, it was nighttime. Wuchen, it's time for the 9 of us to take our medicine. Yin Yang's face was full of a sinister smile as he took out some pills. This is a great place. All divine senses are sealed off, and it's absolutely safe. In other words, we can safely and smoothly break through our current realm tonight, and no sect or anyone will know about it. At least, we'll have to wait until tomorrow before someone comes to share our joy. There was a sinister smile on Yun Yang's face, which was really F*King incongruous with his handsome face. The smile made sure Wuchen and the others break out in a cold sweat for Beast Trainer sect. Whenever their boss showed such a smile, someone would be tricked to death. So far, there had been no exception. It seemed that Beast Trainer's sect was destined to have an easy time tomorrow. In fact, as long as they thought about it, they would be able to roughly guess what would happen tomorrow. The other side would use the strength of their opponents they saw today as a benchmark, and from there, they would come up with the corresponding battle tactics and strategies. But when they really fought tomorrow, the strength that the other side's participants displayed was actually an entire realm higher than yesterday's. How were they going to fight this battle? It was also because of this similarity that Shi Wuchen and the others had a sinister smile on their faces as they took the pills given by Yun Yang one by one. Don't worry too much. There's one more thing we need to consider. That is, Beast Trainer's sect is famous for its beasts, so they will definitely have some unconventional means to help them in battle. We don't have this kind of assistance, so it will be unprecedentedly difficult to fight against enemies with the help of spiritual beasts. Fighting one is almost like fighting two. We have to be careful about this. Also, Beast Trainer's sect is a middle 3-class sect with lower-class celestial luck banners, so they will definitely be much more difficult to deal with than Thousand Mountains sect. We have to pay attention to this as well, Yun Yang said solemnly. It was as if the person with the sinister look just now was not him. He changed his expression so quickly that it was almost as if he was the best actor. We don't have to worry about the breakthrough of our strength today, but in tomorrow's match of disciples and even the match of formations, the disciples will have to face the beasts as support. I'm afraid the result will be uncertain. They have no experience in this aspect. After all, our goal is to win all the matches, and we can't afford to lose even one. When Shi Wuchen and the others heard Yun Yang's concern, they too began to worry, and the calmness they had a moment ago vanished instantly. This was indeed a problem that could not be ignored. Chapter 1092. Based on my understanding of the beast-controlling sect, the spirit beasts and profound beasts that the people of the beast-controlling sect can control basically do not exceed their own cultivation. At most, they are of the same level, and being of the same level is a very rare match. The demon race is always watching from the sidelines. As long as the cultivation base of the subdued beasts exceeds that of their masters, their control will be weakened, and they can easily be instigated by the demon race. It's not uncommon for such beasts to backfire in battles like this. So, Luo Dajiang continued, if they encounter us, who are experienced, they will often concentrate their power to the limit to kill the mystical beasts first, and then turn to deal with the Beastmaster. After all, the combat strength of the controlled mystical beasts will no longer be wild, and their innate combat ability will be reduced by at least one level. In this way, it's actually not difficult to kill them. Tai Qingsang snorted and said, what's the use of saying all this? Who doesn't know this? The problem now is that our disciples have excellent cultivation base, but they have never seen a ferocious beast. It's already good enough that they don't cry in fear when it suddenly appears in front of them. It's too dangerous to fight it rashly. If anything happens to them, I'm afraid it will leave a psychological scar in their hearts, which will cause endless trouble in the future, not to mention the battle for the Celestial Luck Banner. This was indeed a tricky problem, and if it could not be solved, it would be a great crisis. Yin Yang frowned and said slowly, you don't have to worry about this. Take the medicine and break through first, and I'll think of a way. Sigh, it's just a rehearsal after all, and it may not work. But there's nothing else we can do now. We can only try it as a last resort. May I ask what the solution is, boss? Everyone was very curious about the solution Yin Yang mentioned, and they were not in the mood to take the medicine to break through. Yin Yang ignored Shi Wuchen and the rest. He gathered all 10 of his disciples and gave each of them a small bead. Wear this when you're going to fight tomorrow. If you encounter a mystical beast, you can try to persuade it. Just try to communicate with it. Cough, cough. I believe it will work. Everyone present, without exception, stared with wide eyes. Try to persuade it. Try to communicate with it. With mystical beasts and spirit beasts. Can they understand it? Is this your so-called method of trying everything in a desperate situation? There really was no other way. It was simply wishful thinking. Desperate times call for desperate measures. There's no need to be so surprised. You don't need to know what's in your hands right now. All you need to know is that this thing has a very good effect on Xian beasts, spirit beasts, or demonic beasts. You only need to say, I have something good here. The only thing you need to pay attention to is that the beads in your hands cannot be snatched away by anyone. If someone really comes to snatch it, swallow it immediately. Yin Yang instructed, do you remember? Got it. Yin Xiuxin and the others were naturally puzzled by Yun Yang's strategy, but they also knew that now was not the time to solve their doubts. He only needed to do as he was told. In any case, his master would not harm him. For the rest of the night, the residence of 9 Supremes had not been lit at all. There was not a single sound of activity. The platforms were separated from each other by a thick white fog. Even if there were lights, even if there were any movements, it would be completely obscured. Therefore, no one knew that there was no movement from the residence of 9 Supremes. As for Beast Trainer's sect, residence of 9 Supremes' opponent tomorrow, they had been planning and preparing for the whole night. This is a fight to the death for our sect. Qin Ruogu's face was very grave. Our sect is different from Thousand Mountains sect or Illusory Sword sect. As that old fool Lu Qingfeng said, whether they win or lose, they will still be lower-class Celestial Luck Banners, but we are middle-class Celestial Luck Banners, and once we take a step back, it's equivalent to dropping a level. Thousand Mountains sect and Illusory Sword sect's ranking may drop, but they won't really lose anything, but if we lose, we'll suffer a great loss. For our sect, we can only win this battle. I'll be frank, if you lose because of the absolute gap in strength, no one will blame you. But, if someone loses because of carelessness, he or she will have to go to the Patriarch and kill himself to apologize. Qin Ruogu's eyes were particularly fierce and frightening at the moment. Everyone nodded in agreement. After all, they all knew the seriousness of the consequences of losing the battle, and none of them thought that Qin Ruogu was making a fuss over a minor issue. Now, let's discuss the specific tactics of the battle. Qin Ruogu took a deep breath and calmed his face. Our goal is to win 3 matches, and there's no need to pursue too much. An old man with white hair and a beard, his face full of wrinkles and his eyes gleaming, said, for example, residents of 9 Supreme's tactics of formations have reached the pinnacle of the Tao of formations, and it is the most powerful formation I've ever seen in my life. No matter what, it will be difficult for us to win this match. Personally, I suggest we just give up and stop wasting our energy. You're right, Uncle Master. The Tao of formations is indeed difficult to turn around, said Qin Ruogu. In your opinion, what are our chances in the remaining 4 matches? The strongest fighting force in our sect is you, Uncle Master. You're a peak 4th-tier saint expert, and also our greatest trump card. Qin Ruogu said, Uncle Master, in your opinion, what is the real cultivation base of Luo Dajiang, Tai Qingsang, and that Yun Yang in the few matches during the day? If Uncle Master were to fight them, would you be able to defeat any of them? The old man's wrinkled face looked even deeper when he heard that. He went over the battle during the day in his mind again, and then said in a deep voice, these 3 men should be the strongest fighting force in residence of 9 Supremes, so I can't be wrong. According to my observation. He paused again and said, even though these people's cultivation is not as good as mine, the difference is extremely small. Qin Ruogu's face darkened again. Doesn't that mean each of them has the cultivation base of a peak 4th-tier saint? 3 peak 4th-tier saints? When the others heard this, their expressions changed for a while and they panicked. The reason why the illusory sword sect could suppress the Thousand Mountains sect, which was famous for its formation, was not because of its lack of strength. But the reason why it could not make further progress and obtain a higher grade of celestial luck banner was because the beast-controlling sect not only had the help of mystical beasts but also 2 4th-level saints, while the illusory sword sect only had 1. This little difference in peak fighting strength determined the overall strength of the 2 sects. On the surface, the residents of 9 Supremes already had 3 4th-grade saints. Their combined combat strength was already above beast trainer sects. Not to mention that they were defeated in the first match of formations, which made them even more powerless to fight. Under such conditions, it was not a pipe dream to win 3 matches, but at least the situation was unprecedentedly grim, appalling, and unimaginable. The situation has not developed to the point of no return yet. The old man hesitated for a moment, and then said, Beast Trainer's sect is famous for its beasts, so we naturally have to think of a way to deal with this. First of all, I'll bring my Jade Wind Wolf to fight tomorrow and inject the fire of life into it. I think I can increase my chances of winning to more than 80%, and I'll win the match as soon as possible. Qin Ruogu's expression flickered, and a deep sorrow came over his face. Chapter 1093. The so-called flame of life was the most intuitive manifestation of the power of life. The fighting strength enhanced by the flame of life could only last for a moment, and it could not be replenished easily. Even in the 5th-layer celestial realm, it could not be replenished, especially when such a mystic art had to be developed before the battle. The current condition of this Uncle Master of Beast Trainer's sect was probably slightly better than that of Elder Zhang and Elder Li. Although his life was almost at its end, he still had a few decades to live. Originally, there was still a slight hope for him to find an opportunity to make a breakthrough, or to find some treasures to prolong his life. There was still hope in all these. But, if he destroyed the flame of life this time, his life would be further consumed, and he might not be able to wait until then, and he would certainly die prematurely. But, this was the only match they had the confidence to win, so they had to fight. Because if they did not, they would surely lose. Uncle Master. Everyone's expression changed. My battle has been decided. A serene smile appeared on the old man's face as he said, the foundation and glory of my ancestors that lasted thousands of years, if I just watch it be lost, how would I have the face to pay my respects to my ancestors in the future? Qin Ruogu took a deep breath, gritted his teeth, and said, all right, Uncle Master's match is decided. Everyone bowed their heads in silence for a long while. Let's move on to the second match, Qin Ruogu said through gritted teeth. The second match is between the disciples. We should have a 70% chance of winning this match. Every junior disciple of Residents of Nine Supremes is a young genius, and I can see it without using my divine sense. However, it is precisely because they are all young geniuses that they are young and have little experience that they cannot avoid. If our disciples bring their spirit beasts with them, they will certainly be caught off guard and thrown into a panic. As long as we strike at the right moment, our chances of winning are still very high. Alright, the second match will be a one-on-one match between the disciples. How should we proceed with the third match? Asked Chin Ruogu. The old man gave Chin Ruogu a meaningful look and said, Ruogu, the third match is the match of sect leaders. The match of sect leaders? Chin Ruogu was taken aback. I'm a saint at the pinnacle of the second level, but Yin Yang is already at the pinnacle of the fourth level. The old man smiled faintly. No, I'm certain that you'll win. Have you forgotten that our beast trainer sect's guardian divine beast, Chin Ruogu's spirit was lifted when he heard that? Not bad, he said. It was the first time Chin Ruogu smiled today. At this moment, Chin Ruogu felt much more relaxed. According to Martial Granduncle's arrangement, their chances of winning had really risen to more than 80%. It had to be said that the older the ginger, the spicier it was. Last but not least, I'd like to make one more point. According to our wishful thinking, our chances of winning the 3 matches should be more than 80%. The old man said, but we must set aside 1 match in case something unexpected happens. Whether Residents of Nine Supremes has shown its full strength is still uncertain. For example, when they fought Kangwu Union, they sent Shi Wuchen. Although his overall strength was only second-rate, everyone misjudged him and thought he was the second strongest expert of Residents of Nine Supremes. That was a great miscalculation. We've already done everything we can, and we can't afford to make any mistakes in this detail. I have an idea, a young disciple suddenly interjected. We can propose a match of mystical beasts. That is, we can use mystical beasts to decide the outcome of the match. Nonsense. Chin Ruogu was displeased. Residents of Nine Supremes doesn't have any mystical beasts. Before he could finish, his eyes lit up. It's true that Residents of Nine Supremes doesn't have any mystical beasts, and it's not fair to use mystical beasts to decide the outcome of the match. However, Thousand Mountains sect has avoided the match of sect leaders with the excuse of fighting on their own. That's a lesson from the past. Why can't we do the same? We're in charge of the rules of the match, and we can fight however we want. If we do that, although we'll lose face, we'll still win the match, Master. Upon hearing the disciples' words, the eyes of everyone in Beast Trainer sect lit up. Not bad. Not bad at all. This is a wonderful idea. Beast Trainer sect is famous for its beasts, so it's reasonable for us to use mystical beasts and spirit beasts to fight, and it's even understandable for us to use demon beasts. That's the kind of sect we are after all. What a brilliant idea. Chin Ruogu burst out laughing. With that, we can really be said to be invincible. If we win the first 3 matches, we naturally won't use this dishonorable trick. But, if that happens, maybe we can use this trick to turn the tables. Sect leader is wise. Chin Ruogu looked at the disciple and said, Go back and receive your reward after we return victorious. Thank you, Master. The whole Beast Trainer sect was in a jubilant mood. But the old man just sighed softly and closed his eyes, for he felt a piercing chill filling his heart. Previously, when they did not have a way to win, it was understandable for them to include him in the starting lineup by sacrificing his lifespan. But now, with such a trick, they could win this match for sure, and they could just put me in the back as a last resort. Why? Why didn't the whole sect think of it? Why didn't anyone mention it? Was it just because the trick was dishonorable and they refused to give up their pride? Everyone in the sect was jumping with joy as if victory was already in their grasp, and none of them had considered that their martial uncle master's life would come to an end after this battle. The old man closed his eyes, and the chill in his heart seemed to have grown stronger. I have been protecting Beast Trainer sect all my life. Why is it that when the most important battle comes, I am still willing to sacrifice myself to protect my sect? Early the next morning. Although the whole arena was still shrouded in a boundless fog, the morning air was fresher and more pleasant than that of the outside world. Everyone, including Hui Yunfeng, came to the grandstand one after another. Their eyes were fixed on the celestial luck banner, which was now in the 7th place. The look in their eyes was very complicated. It had been many years since something like this had happened in the Battle of the Celestial Luck Banner. The Battle of the Celestial Luck Banner was held every 3 years, and every 3 years, a challenger would be born to challenge the sect that ranked last in the lower-class Celestial Luck Banner. Kangwu Union was also a strong sect that had been challenged in recent years, but had never been replaced. Over the years, it had probably only been threatened by another sect with a strong foundation, the Wild Saber sect. There had been no other challenges. However, the residence of 9 Supremes was only a small sect that had just been established. Not long after its emergence, it had advanced all the way and obtained the qualification to face the veteran sects with Celestial Luck Banner. Moreover, after defeating the strong sect, Kangwu Union, it went on to challenge Thousand Mountains sect. Even when its opponent maliciously changed the rules of the match, it still won a complete victory. After that, it defeated the higher-ranked Illusory Sword sect without a fight, and now challenged Beast Trainer sect, which ranked 7th in the lower-class Celestial Luck Banner. In one go, it had defeated 3 sects with lower-class Celestial Luck Banners in a row. Remember the mobile version's URL, Chapter 216, the plan is set. Page 1/1, bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 1094. Such an achievement was more than appalling, it was simply insane and boundlessly ruthless. But now, they still wanted to move forward. It seemed that the word strong had been applied to residents of 9 Supremes. They just didn't know how long and to what extent residents of 9 Supremes could maintain its strength. No one could guarantee which ranking they would stop at. At this moment, the few sects that were ranked at the top of the rankings all felt a subtle sense of danger, as if they were all trembling with fear. It would be fine if Beast Trainer's sect could successfully intercept residents of 9 Supremes, but if they failed, residents of 9 Supremes would become a thorn in their flesh, and they would never feel at ease at all. Standing on the high platform, Hui Yunfeng could not help but roll his eyes when he saw that all the other sects had arrived except for residents of 9 Supremes. They're really patient. Beast Trainer's sect has arrived a long time ago. Ding Byuk smiled faintly and said, if it were me, I would be very patient too. Because the fundamental purpose of coming here was achieved yesterday. No matter how far we can go, we will have earned it. How can we not be patient? Moreover, there is no danger involved. Even if we die, we can be resurrected on the spot. What's the point of fighting for a moment? Yu Bunning laughed and said, that's right. Do you want to make another bet? Hui Yunfeng rolled his eyes. A bet between residents of 9 Supremes and Beast Trainer sect? Ding Byuk and Yu Buning's faces changed at the same time. Last night, they had held the 240 pieces of supreme-grade spiritual jade in their hands, and they had been smiling even in their dreams. Now, when they heard that the culprit was still unwilling to give up, they were naturally shocked and flustered. Hui Yunfeng must have some ulterior motive for making the bet 3 times. Could their luck continue? The current situation was different from the previous day. In the first round, the 2 of them were forcibly pulled into the game by Hui Yunfeng. Although they won in an inexplicable way. In the second round, the 2 of them almost gave up. After all, everyone could see that Hui Yunfeng was determined to make up for his loss in the first round. However, the unexpected victory gave the 2 of them an unimaginably huge profit. Now that Hui Yunfeng had proposed a bet, the 2 of them were naturally unwilling from the bottom of their hearts. After all, there was no need for them to take risks when they had such great benefits. Let's bet on today's battle, said Hui Yunfeng. Residents of 9 Supreme's formidable strength is still vivid in everyone's mind, and its strength is beyond everyone's expectation. On the other side, Beast Trainer sect is also a middle-tier sect with lower-class celestial luck banners. Their strength is not weak. An illusory sword sect, Thousand Mountains sect, and Kangwoo Union can compare with them. Moreover, they have the help of mystical beasts. The fight between these two sects will not only be exciting, it will also be filled with suspense. He said, so this time, the odds are 1-to-1, which is the fairest. Ding Byuk and Yu Bunning looked at each other and felt a headache coming on. If it was possible, the two of them definitely didn't want to gamble anymore, but how could they not gamble? The two of them had won 2 rounds in a row, and their boss had lost so badly that his face had turned green. If they didn't give him a chance to make a comeback, wouldn't that be too ugly? Therefore, they still had to gamble this round. But, as Hui Yunfeng said, it was really difficult to judge which of the two sects was stronger and who would win. In the first 2 rounds, residents of 9 Supremes faced Kangwoo Union and Thousand Mountains sect. Because of Shi Wuchen's first battle, everyone had a painful experience of misjudging residents of 9 Supremes' fighting strength. As a result, residents of 9 Supremes, which was supposed to be freakishly strong, was mistaken as a pushover. This also made residents of 9 Supremes look weak, which led them to passively choose to bet on it. They had no choice but to gamble in the first round, which was actually to deliberately send money over, and in the second round, it was to return the money. Who would have thought that they would win both rounds? But, how should they bet on this round? Since it's hard to judge, let's ask Boss to choose first. Boss will choose one, and will choose the other. It all depends on luck, and there's no other way to explain it. The two of them made up their minds. In the face of their decision, Hui Yunfeng was in a dilemma. After all, even Hui Yunfeng found it difficult to choose at the moment. There was no doubt that residents of 9 Supremes was very strong. Everyone could see it and could not deny it. However, almost every senior member of Beast Trainer's sect and its core fighting force had a mystical beast with them, and even the elite disciples often had pet beasts with them. It was no joke that Beast Trainer's sect's fighting strength had increased out of thin air. This must be taken into account. Under such circumstances, no matter how strong residents of 9 Supremes was, it might not be a match for Beast Trainer sect. I choose Beast Trainer sect this round. Hui Yunfeng gritted his teeth and said, I don't believe I can fall into the same trap 3 times. Ding Byuk and Yu Bunning nodded helplessly. In that case, we'll still bet on residents of 9 Supremes. What's the bet for this round? 100 Supreme grade bets this time. What do you think? Hui Yunfeng gritted his teeth and pondered for a long time before finally coming up with a number. Ding Byuk and Yu Bunning were a little surprised when they heard it. They had thought that he would propose a bet of hundreds of spiritual jade, but it was only 100 this time. This doesn't seem to be Boss's style. Boss, don't tell me you've run out of money? Yu Bunning asked suspiciously. Boss can't be so poor, can he? Hui Yunfeng blushed and said, between us brothers, a small bet is just for fun. It's just for fun, hee hee. Finally, residents of 9 Supremes came out. As soon as Yun Yang came out, he felt the covetous eyes of the crowd. Everyone's gaze on the residents of 9 Supremes was complicated and indescribable. The eyes of Beast Trainer sect, which was next to residents of 9 Supremes, were even more complicated and inexplicable. Let's welcome the 2 sect leaders. Hui Yunfeng's voice rang out suddenly. This time, both sects quickly decided on the order of the duels. Well, in fact, it was still Beast Trainer's sect who made the rules, and residents of 9 Supremes accepted them all. The first match was the pinnacle match, in which both sects would send out their strongest experts. The second match was the match of disciples, the third match was the match of sect leaders, the fourth match was the match of free will, and the fifth match was the match of formations. When they saw the order Qin Ruogu had chosen, everyone knew that Beast Trainer's sect had clearly given up on the last match, or perhaps they might not even be able to start the fourth match. Because in the first 3 matches, Beast Trainer's sect had at least a 70% chance of winning, which meant that they had a very high chance of winning. In a duel between cultivation experts, even the slightest difference could affect the outcome of the battle. Basically, there was more than a 60% chance of winning, and there was an 80 to 90% chance of winning. I have no objection, Yun Yang agreed without hesitation. In that case, let's get ready. Hui Yunfeng was very satisfied with Yun Yang's straightforwardness. He patted Qin Ruogu on the shoulder and encouraged him with a smile. Sect leader Qin, I think very highly of Beast Trainer Sect. Qin Ruogu was flattered. Thank you for your appreciation, Lord Deacon. Beast Trainer Sect will certainly not lose this match. Hui Yunfeng pretended to be calm and said, come on. Just do your best. After all, he had a responsibility to bear, so he could not show his partiality too obviously. At least, he had to maintain a fair attitude. At this moment, a bleak old man from Beast Trainer Sect was already standing in the field, waiting for the arrival of his opponent. Chapter 1095. Beside him was a giant wolf with silver eyes. I'm Meng Xiao from Beast Trainer Sect. Who from the residence of 9 Supremes would like to spar with me? Yun Yang waved his hand. Luo Dajiang strode out with his saber in hand. Luo Dajiang from the residence of 9 Supremes. After Kangwu Union had established its might in the battle, Luo Dajiang's reputation as the #1 expert in the residence of 9 Supremes other than Yun Yang had resounded through all the sects with lower-class celestial luck banners. No one dared to underestimate him anymore, and no one regarded him as a whetstone anymore. The name of Supreme Saber had spread like wildfire. I didn't see Supreme Saber's true face that day, but now that I've seen you, you are indeed extraordinary. The old man slowly took out his weapon, which was a silver hook with a peculiar shape. No one knew how many souls had been buried on this silver hook, but as soon as it was taken out, it was shrouded in a faint layer of black, giving off a terrifying aura. Luo Dajiang's expression changed abruptly as he said in a deep voice, the Soul Reaper. The name Meng Xiao might not be familiar to him, but the famous Soul Reaper in the martial world had left a deep impression on Luo Dajiang. The soul-reaping silver hook, the path to the 9 serenities. If Luo Dajiang could not remember it when he saw the peculiar-looking silver hook weapon, he would not have been able to survive in the martial world for so many years. You've earned yourself an undeserved reputation. Meng Xiao's expression was unusually bleak, his white hair fluttering in the wind. Supreme Saber, please. Luo Dajiang glanced at the silver wolf, who had stood up abruptly as Meng Xiao moved. With a vigilant look on his face, he slowly straightened his saber and said in a deep voice, please enlighten me, senior. As he straightened his saber, his body leaned forward slightly, and as his expression turned solemn, a heavy aura suddenly rose. Both their divine senses were disturbed by the unique influence of this place, causing them to lose their understanding of the enemy's combat strength. However, as they faced each other at such a close distance, Meng Xiao had a slight understanding of Luo Dajiang's strength through the sensing of their auras. His expression changed slightly, and the silver wolf showed a vigilant look almost at the same time. The man and the wolf both felt as if the person they were facing was no longer a simple person, but a heavy mountain, unshakable and unshakable. Luo Dajiang had merely stood there with his saber in his arms, but with this slight movement, he had become flawless, making it difficult for him to land an attack. However, even if there were no flaws, it did not mean that there were no flaws. Since Meng Xiao had such a great reputation, he was naturally a person who knew how to fight. The tip of his foot lightly touched the ground, and his body suddenly swayed. It was as if his body had split into 7 figures that shot out in all directions. Each figure held a soul-stealing silver hook, no different from the original body. The next moment, 8 Meng Xiaos surrounded Luo Dajiang from 8 directions. Flashing with silver light at the same time, they converged into 8 waves of attacks that came whistling down at the same time. Up to this point, Meng Xiao's attacks were already very aggressive and unusual. However, there was a silver wolf next to each of his clones, just like the main body. The 8 silver wolves moved with the waves, leaping into the air and turning into streaks of silver light as they pounced toward Luo Dajiang. As soon as he made his move, it showed that this old man was worthy of being a veteran expert. His attack was extraordinary, and his power shook the heavens. Seeing that the deadly attack was coming, Luo Dajiang dared not to be careless. Storms of the 8 directions. Before his voice had died away, the saber in his hand moved abruptly and twirled around him. Suddenly, a layer of saber energy spread all over his body, shielding him from the wind and rain. Then, his burly body charged forward, completely ignoring the attacks coming from all directions. Luo Dajiang rushed to the edge of the battlefield and slashed down with the saber in his hand, cutting one of the silver wolves in front of him into 2. Then, a crisp clang rang out. It was the sound of the saber and the hook colliding head-on. The clang meant that Luo Dajiang had accurately identified the location of Meng Zhao's real body among the 8 shadows, and he had even targeted the target with 1 strike. Meng Zhao grunted, and the clones around him vanished instantly. However, Luo Dajiang grunted at the same time, because the silver wolf's claw had scratched his right shoulder during the head-on clash with Meng Zhao. His flesh was badly mangled, and he was badly injured. The silver wolf's claw was even sharper than divine weapons. Luo Dajiang had the body of a saint king now, so ordinary blades and swords could not break his defense even if he stood still and was held in the hands of an ordinary warrior. Yet, he was wounded by the wolf's claws. However, it was not only Luo Dajiang's right shoulder that was injured. The silver wolf howled as well. The right front claw it used to attack Luo Dajiang was badly mangled, and all 3 of its nails were broken. This was the counterattack of a saint king. The mere counterattack of the flesh had caused the silver wolf to be injured at the same time. At this moment, Luo Dajiang spun around abruptly and showed his back to Meng Zhao. At the same time, he raised his saber and slashed at the silver wolf, who was retreating quickly because of the pain. The saber light flashed like lightning, and the killing intent was like a raging wave. Meng Zhao staggered and could not stand steadily because of the blow just now. He was wondering why Luo Dajiang's cultivation base was so high that it seemed to be even higher than his own. When he saw the silver wolf in danger, he did not have time to stabilize his center of gravity, and the silver hook slipped out of his hand and stabbed straight at Luo Dajiang's exposed back. He quickly judged that the silver wolf had exposed its real body because its attack had succeeded. However, Luo Dajiang's real strength was beyond his expectation, and naturally, he was much stronger than the silver wolf. The silver wolf would definitely die with this strike. It turned out that Luo Dajiang's real purpose was to cripple the silver wolf first. Although he had thrown out the silver hook and temporarily restrained Luo Dajiang's killing move, it was only a temporary restraint and could not do anything to Luo Dajiang. He needed to keep up with Luo Dajiang to really solve the silver wolf's crisis. To his surprise, Luo Dajiang laughed and said, "You've been fooled." Then, he spun around abruptly and kicked the purple gold crown backward, hitting the silver wolf's stomach with great precision. The silver wolf howled as its huge body was kicked off the ground, but Luo Dajiang only moved his body sideways. The silver hook flew past him with a trail of blood in it. Although it took away some flesh and blood, it did not seriously injure Luo Dajiang. After kicking the silver wolf away, Luo Dajiang charged forward again and crashed into Meng Zhao like a whirlwind, the edge of his saber gleaming. A helpless look came over Meng Zhao's face at once. He had no other choice at this moment. When he came back to help just now, with his experience, he had naturally thought that it might be Luo Dajiang's deliberate move to lure him to help. There was no reason for Luo Dajiang to be injured at the very beginning. He had tested the attack just now, and Luo Dajiang's mystical chi base could only be stronger than his. It was impossible for such an expert to put himself in an abnormally passive and terrible situation from the very beginning. Since it was an unreasonable situation, it was absolutely impossible. Since it was an unreasonable situation, it could only be that he had other plans. In a fight with someone from the beast trainer sect, it was the right thing to do to get rid of their auxiliary spirit beasts first. So, Luo Dajiang's target was the silver wolf from the very beginning? Meng Zhao, who came to this conclusion, felt helpless. If he did not save it, the silver wolf would definitely die, and once it died, he, who was obviously weaker than him, would definitely be defeated. Therefore, he could only choose to save the silver wolf with all his might. However, he did not expect that Luo Dajiang's real purpose in pretending to kill the silver wolf from the very beginning was to lure him into the trap. His target was not the silver wolf from the very beginning, but Meng Xiao himself. Chapter 1096. With a muffled thud, Meng Xiao rolled away, covered in blood. With a roar, the silver wolf that was kicked away by Luo Dajiang pounced at him again, charging at him as if it had no regard for its own life. Growling, it bit Luo Dajiang's left calf. Rings of wind blades emerged from its body and neck, flying out and slicing at Luo Dajiang's body. Luo Dajiang did not seem to notice the attack of the wind blades. He was still striding forward with the silver wolf, which was as big as a calf. The silver wolf bit Luo Dajiang's leg desperately and tried to recoil, but it was still dragged along by Luo Dajiang, leaving long claw marks on the ground. 8 of its phalanges were broken and stained with blood. On the other side, Meng Xiao, who had staggered back after being slashed by Luo Dajiang's saber, had lost his left arm. However, Luo Dajiang's attack did not slow down, and the sharp saber light flashed again. A look of despair flashed in Meng Xiao's eyes as he lost an arm, but his whole body suddenly expanded. At the same time, an extremely explosive and copious amount of profound energy wrapped around him in a rotating manner, and that mass of air was rapidly expanding outwards. Self-detonation. He was going to self-detonate. Luo Dajiang suddenly stopped moving forward and raised his right foot. Bam! 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 In just a flash, he had kicked more than 30 times in a row, turning the silver wolf that was biting his calf into silver ashes. Then, he threw the saber out of his hand and thrust it at Meng Xiao. At this moment, Meng Xiao's body had expanded to the extreme, and he detonated before Luo Dajiang's saber could reach him. The extreme self-detonation of a peak 4th-level saint was extremely powerful, and it was earth-shattering. After kicking the silver wolf away, Luo Dajiang threw the saber away, kicked the ground with the tip of his foot, and shot out like an arrow shot from a bow. The tremendous power of the explosion came at him, and a saber light was the first to fly out. It was the saber Luo Dajiang wanted to counter, and it flew 100 feet away in a flash. The extraordinarily violent force of the explosion even blew Luo Dajiang's feet away. From his thighs to his thighs, his flesh and blood splattered in all directions, making him look miserable. However, his body had already flown 500 feet away. Although both his legs were gone, his life was not in danger. He took a deep breath and let his legs bleed profusely. He took out another saber from his ring and used it to push himself off the ground. His crippled body suddenly flew into the air and shouted, "I won." One of the 2 sides had fallen while the other survived. No matter how injured the survivor was, he had still won. This was an indisputable fact. Everyone who witnessed this battle was silent for a long time. The entire place was so quiet that even a pin drop could be heard. This battle was short, but it was an extremely tragic battle. It was bound to be imprinted in the hearts of the spectators. Just like that, Meng Xiao and the silver wolf turned into ashes one after the other. Although Luo Dajiang was still alive, he was seriously injured. If it were not for the fact that he was in the pentagonal celestial realm, he would have been crippled for life and unable to walk. The loser had lost, but the winner had only won a Pyrrhic victory. Self-detonation was also a technique and tactic allowed by the rules. If the opponent self-detonated when he was at a disadvantage and killed the enemy, it would be considered a draw. Because it was a mutual destruction. Meng Xiao's plan was not wrong. From the first time they fought, he knew that Luo Dajiang's strength was higher than what he had shown before, a level higher than his own. Even if he sacrificed his life to elevate his cultivation base to a state stronger than his peak, and even with the help of the silver wolf, he was still no match for Luo Dajiang. The reality was obviously very different from the result of the discussion last night. The outcome of the battle was reversed. Therefore, after he failed in his ultimate move, he chose to self-detonate at the critical moment, intending to sacrifice his life and bring Luo Dajiang down with him. For him, winning a draw for the sect was the greatest victory. As long as he self-detonated, with the extreme power of exhausting his life force and forcibly raising his cultivation base, even if Luo Dajiang had reached the level of a Saint King, he would not be able to survive such a self-detonation attack. However, he never expected that Luo Dajiang would trade injury for injury from the very beginning. He would rather injure himself first than secure a victory and cut off one of his arms. In this way, the power of the self-detonation he could unleash was weakened due to the loss of his limbs. In addition, Luo Dajiang reacted appropriately and did not rely on his Saint King cultivation base to withstand the power of the self-detonation. He fled at the first moment with extreme speed. In the end, only his legs were crippled, but his life was not in danger. This round was full of unexpected changes. Just a moment of hesitation and the outcome of the battle would be rewritten. There was still dead silence in the arena. The battle was short, but the fierceness of it was the first time anyone had seen it in their lives. Luo Dajiang's strength had surpassed the peak 4th-tier Saint realm and reached the level of a Saint King. This was already a great shock to everyone present. However, in this battle, the Saint King was seriously injured, the peak 4th-tier Saint self-detonated, and the Beast King's Silver Wolf was annihilated in just 5 moves. Whether it was the Silver Wolf, Luo Dajiang, or Meng Xiao, all 3 of them were extremely determined and did not hesitate at all. At this moment, only a few broken teeth of the Silver Wolf were left in the arena, still shining brightly. Everything had ended. It had come to an end. The loser had turned into powder, and the winner had lost both his legs, not to mention his body that was cut into pieces by the wind blades. Is this still a battle between Saint King level experts? Residents of 9 Supremes, tears glistened in Jiang Luolua's eyes. She wanted to step forward to show her concern, but she managed to hold back. Residents of 9 Supremes wins this match. Hui Yunfeng's eyes turned red when he said that. My spiritual jade. My wealth. Why do I feel like I've fallen into this pit again? Wasn't Luo Dajiang's strength just a peak 4th-tier saint yesterday? How did he become a Saint King today? This doesn't make sense. Has he been hiding his strength from the beginning? How many trump cards does residents of 9 Supremes have? Why are they so powerful? Every time I think I'm going to lose, I'm going to be the one to enjoy myself. The moment the winner was announced, the recovery light came as expected. Luo Dajiang and Meng Xiao appeared in the arena at the same time, and the Silver Wolf reappeared as well, still covered in silver fur and standing in high spirits. However, its eyes were full of fear when it looked at Luo Dajiang. How can this human be so brutal? He's even more brutal than us mystical beasts. Meng Xiao's eyes were fixed on Luo Dajiang as he asked, "Are you dead?" "Almost," Luo Dajiang replied calmly, "but both my legs were blown away by you, so I'm still alive." Meng Xiao heaved a long sigh. What a pity, with a wave of his hand, he left with the Silver Wolf. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Chapter 219 A Pyrrhic Victory. Page 1/1, bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 1097. The Silver Wolf turned its head and gave Luo Dajiang a stealthy look as if it wanted to remember this human, then went back to Meng Xiao's side. Qin Ruogu's eyes were wide open as he stared at his uncle master, who was walking toward him. His head was still dizzy, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. He could not believe that his uncle master, who had destroyed his life force, whose overall strength had reached the level of a half-step Saint King, had the full support of a Beast King, and had even self-detonated in the end, was still defeated. It was a nightmare. I've lost. I've done my best, and there's nothing I can do about it, Meng Xiao said faintly. Prepare for the next battle. Qin Ruogu nodded blankly. Meng Xiao sighed and walked back to his seat. Uncle Master. Qin Ruogu blurted out. Meng Xiao did not look back. After this battle, no matter who wins or loses, I'll leave the sect. In my last moments, I'll have a drink with my old friends and have a good look at the world. I won't be in the sect anymore. After I die, someone will naturally send my body back. Uncle Master. Qin Ruogu cried out with his eyes wide open. Even his voice was filled with disbelief. That's all. With his back turned, Meng Xiao waved his hand and said with a faint smile, I've been fighting for the beast-controlling sect for thousands of years. Now, at the last moment, let me relax for a while and take a rest. I want to live my own life for the rest of my life. He laughed in a low, hoarse voice, then turned and left. Qin Ruogu's mind was blank. He could not figure out what had happened to his uncle master. Didn't he just lose the expected victory? I didn't say anything unpleasant, so why does it seem like I'm disheartened? Could it be that the defeat this time was such a huge blow to martial granduncle? The sect leader of Beast Trainer's sect was really speechless. Even now, he still had not figured out why his uncle master had left so dejectedly. The second match is the match of disciples. A middle-aged disciple of Beast Trainer's sect, who was in his 30s, rose to his feet, clutched his spirit beast ring, bowed, and said, Master, this disciple will fight. All right. The disciple walked quickly out of the room. On the residence of Nine Supreme's side, Bai Yexing took a step forward and said, Master, this disciple requests to fight. Just as Yun Xiaoxin was about to speak, Bai Yexing said, Eldest senior sister, you've already fought one before. Leave this one to junior brother. Yun Xiaoxin rolled her eyes and said angrily, Eldest senior brother and eldest senior sister should fight in the disciple battle. Yun Yang chuckled. Yi Xing will fight in this battle. Bai Yexing bowed and said, Thank you, sect leader. This battle will not be easy, but as long as you remember what I said, you can still win. Yin Yang looked at Bai Yexing and said, Don't be careless, because in my opinion, this battle may be the one that Residence of Nine Supremes has the least chance of winning. In this battle, steadiness and ferocity are more important than combat strength. Bai Yexing pursed his lips and said, I understand. I will do my best and not bring shame to the sect. Go. Yes. Clad in a white robe, Bai Yexing picked up his sword and walked out of the arena at a slow speed. As he walked, he pondered the situation of the battle. There was no doubt that this battle was extremely crucial. His opponent was assisted by a spirit beast, and his strength was most likely about the same as his. So, how could he win? Although Yun Xiaoxin's strength was the strongest among all the disciples, she was a girl after all, and she was too young. As long as the opponent's spirit beast was a little fierce, she would inevitably be mentally weaker. Moreover, as the eldest senior sister of a sect, she could not be defeated. And I, Bai Yexing, will definitely get through this. I'll do my best in this battle. Even if I can't win, I'll win by any means, even if I have to risk my life. I believe I can still fight for a chance to perish together with my opponent. No, an idea flashed in Bai Yexing's mind. I can't perish together with my opponent. This battle is different from other battles. The attitude of the participants toward death is far different from that of other battles. They don't have to be afraid, because they can be resurrected after the battle. Who would really be afraid of death? So, if I have this idea from the beginning, I've already prepared myself that I won't win. At most, I'll end up with a draw, and I'll already be mentally defeated. Then, should I try another way of fighting? What is the true meaning of Master's repeated advice of steadiness and fierceness? Bai Yexing pursed his lips and quickened his pace. If the battle between Luo Dajiang and Meng Xiao was fierce and quick, then Bai Yexing's battle sent chills down everyone's spines and made them shudder. There was actually someone in the world who used such an extreme way to fight. When Residents of Nine Supremes fought Thousand Mountains sect in the Battle of Formations, Bai Yexing was one of the disciples who participated in the battle. His strength was displayed to the fullest, and although it amazed everyone, it also revealed his true strength. Therefore, Beast Trainer's sect had specially sent a disciple whose cultivation base had reached the realm of Venerable to fight him. The mystical beast of Beast Trainer's sect, on the other hand, had surpassed the 9th grade. It was huge, ferocious, and frightening. Under the combined combat strength of these two opponents, Bai Yexing was at a complete disadvantage almost from the beginning. Anyone present could see the situation. It was clear who was stronger and who was weaker, and it would be difficult to turn the situation around. However, Bai Yexing had shown an indescribable performance since the beginning of the battle. As soon as the battle began, no one knew what he had done, but he merely showed his hand, but the opponent's ferocious look, which was about to devour him, suddenly disappeared. Then, he froze for a moment, and then flew away as if he was chasing something. It was a pity that the crowd was too far away, and they did not see what it was that could distract the mystical beast. But, with the speed of the mystical beast, no matter what it was chasing, the time it could buy was at most a snap of its fingers. However, it was at this very moment that Bai Yexing burst out with unprecedented speed and bolted forward. He did not even look at the sharp sword that was aimed at his heart, but thrust it at his opponent's throat. Knowing that he had the upper hand, his opponent was not willing to die together with him. Hastily, he changed his move to block, and at the same time, he wanted to buy himself a moment and wait for the mystical beast to return. The disciple of Beast Trainer's sect had a good plan. But Bai Yexing's next move was unexpected. The moment the saber and sword collided, Bai Yexing's sword suddenly flew out of his hand. No one knew whether it was blocked by his opponent's weapon or it let go of its own accord, but as soon as the battle began, Bai Yexing was empty-handed. Genius in a second. Remember my address. Mobile version. Chapter 1098. Although the disciple of Beast Trainer's sect did not know what was going on, he felt that it was not a bad thing. His opponent had been injured and thrown away his weapon. Was this still a bad thing for him? He could only be more confident. He hurriedly circulated his mystical chi to strike again. But just now, he had first attacked the enemy's vital parts, then switched to a defensive stance, mustering all his strength to parry Bai Yexing's fierce attack, but somehow, his sword had been knocked away. Now, when he tried to circulate his mystical chi again, he was shocked to find that the strength he had exerted so many times, especially when he was defending with all his might just now, was a little disordered. It would only take him half a breath at most to recover from the disorder. However, it was during this time that Bai Yexing lunged forward like a madman, wrapped his arms around the young man's neck, and grabbed him by the neck with both hands. This was no longer a martial art move, but a pure gangster's way of fighting. It was a close combat. It was not only unexpected, but also unexpected. The opponent, a venerable expert, was suddenly hugged, and it was difficult for him to move or break free. The opponent reacted quickly, and the next moment, he stabbed his sword into Bai Yexing's body. Unfortunately, his hands were restrained, and the sword did not hit his vital parts, so Bai Yexing did not dodge. Instead, he mustered all his strength to continue strangling his opponent's neck. At the same time, the sword that had been knocked away just now returned to him. How could Bai Yexing's sword be knocked away for no reason? This was the trump card he had prepared. The sword flew back from the man's back like a bolt of lightning and fell silently like a meteor. The man did not know, but the onlookers exclaimed in unison. This was too dangerous. Then, Bai Yexing used all his strength to keep his opponent motionless, causing both of them to be pierced by the sword that had been summoned back. In the battlefield of the Celestial Luck Banner competition, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the sword that had been summoned back came down from above, pierced through the opponent's chest, and then stabbed into Bai Yexing's lower abdomen. The opponent screamed, his eyes wide. Bai Yexing's face was expressionless, as indifferent as when he first appeared. His eyes were calm. It was as if he wasn't injured at all. He didn't stop there. He twisted his body without saying a word. He didn't hesitate to use his own body as a medium to break the sword that was stabbed into his body and his own sword that was stabbed into his body. Use your own bones to break the two swords. Just saying that scene was extremely tragic and horrifying wasn't enough to describe it. It was practically a restricted level. At this moment, the man screamed and struggled desperately to separate himself from Bai Yeshing. He staggered backward, looking at Bai Yeshing as if he was looking at a ghost. In this world, there are actually people who fight like this. He didn't treat himself as a human at all. However, what was even more shocking was what happened next. Bai Yeshing was still holding on, and he was smiling calmly at her. This kind of smile, however, was even more frightening than gnashing his teeth. The man's heart shuddered, but Bai Yeshing was already charging at him. The man raised the broken sword and slashed madly, cutting Bai Yeshing's flesh and sending bone fragments flying in all directions. But Bai Yeshing was unmoved, and his expression didn't even change. With a swoosh, he reached out and pulled out the two parts of the broken sword from his body, then turned and stabbed them into the enemy's heart. The man let out another inhuman howl, trying to fight back. But Bai Yeshing opened his mouth, rushed forward, and bit the man's throat with his white teeth. The man was still holding his broken sword, and he kept slashing at Bai Yeshing, trying to force him away. But Bai Yeshing held on fearlessly, refusing to let go no matter what, and kept biting off the man's neck. Blood gushed out of the man's throat as he stared at Bai Yeshing with fear in his eyes. Finally, his body went limp and fell to the ground. All of this happened in the time it takes for a spark to fly off a piece of flint. From start to finish, only a dozen breaths of time had passed. He attacked. It was an extreme tactic of perishing together with the enemy. He let go of the sword and added a spinning force to it, causing it to be knocked away. When the enemy's mystical chi was in a state of disorder, he would pounce on it, using a technique that surpassed martial arts to hold the enemy still, allowing him to be injured one after another. Then, he would hold on until the sword flew back and pierced through the enemy as well as himself. Then he would use his own flesh and bones to break the sword and stab the enemy at close range. The final killing move was to bite the enemy's throat until it was broken. This series of changes happened right in front of everyone's eyes, and it was completely out of everyone's expectations. It was filled with blood and extreme. It was only at this moment that the profound beast that had flown out inexplicably rushed back. It had only been a few dozen breaths of time since it had left. And in that short time, its master was dead. Although the disciple of Beast Trainer's sect was dead, Bai Yeshing's condition was not much better. Not only was he bathed in blood, but he had lost an arm, which was the result of the disciple's counterattack. His remaining right hand, however, had produced a sword from his spatial ring. Holding it in his hand, he charged at the mystical beast without saying a word. Bai Yeshing knew that he was seriously injured and could not fight again, but such an extreme tactic was to kill the disciple of Beast Trainer's sect as soon as possible and then fight the mystical beast again, avoiding the situation where he was attacked from both sides. Now that his plan had been achieved, how could he not muster up any more strength and fight desperately for victory? The mystical beast, which had just gotten the upper hand, was shocked to see its master dead. Shocked, it leaned to the side, dodged the sword, and then bit down on half of Bai Yeshing's body. But it was a move that Bai Yeshing had deliberately given up. Bai Yeshing had his own assessment of his current situation. He knew that he could no longer fight the mystical beast for a long time, so he had to take the risk. So, he let his body creak under the beast's bite. Greedy for victory, he swung the sword in his right hand and cut off both of the mystical beast's legs, then stabbed it into its chest. The mystical beast roared and tried to flee, but with its legs broken, it could not move as fast as usual. Bai Yeshing rushed up to it and slashed again with the sword. The beast's ferocity exploded, and it counterattacked, biting off Bai Yeshing's right hand, but the sword had also cut off one of its front claws. At this point in the battle, Bai Yeshing should have lost both of his arms, but as the mystical beast was tearing at him, he did not give up. Using the same method, he twisted his head and bit down on the mystical beast's throat. At the same time, he kicked and kneed the wounds on the mystical beast's body with his legs. The mystical beast, whose ferocity had been stimulated, was shocked by Bai Yeshing's crazy behavior and subdued. Although it managed to break free from Bai Yeshing's grip, it hopped desperately away from him with only one front leg, not daring to come any closer. Its eyes were filled with fear. It had never seen such a ferocious human being before. How can he be so terrifying? Who is the mystical beast? Chapter 1099. At this point, Bai Yexing's body was basically covered in wounds. Both of his arms were gone, and blood was gushing out of them. The loss of blood alone was enough to kill a man, but he did not make a sound from beginning to end. Instead, he continued to press fiercely toward the mystical beast. The mystical beast whimpered and dodged, but it only had one front leg left, so it could not jump easily. Gradually, Bai Yexing forced it into a corner, and finally, it began to fight back. With both of his arms crippled, Bai Yexing could no longer use his mystical energy to attack, but he desperately rushed forward and sent his body into the mystical beast's mouth. Then, he tilted his head and bit the beast with his bloody teeth. "Come and bite me. I'll bite you." Then, he continued to kick with his legs. This time, the mystical beast was really frightened. With the last of its strength, it flung Bai Yexing to one side, then retreated to the other side, where it lay on the ground, shivering. The fear in its eyes grew stronger, and it could not be concealed. It wanted nothing more than to escape from the battlefield. Bai Yexing got to his feet again and rushed toward the mystical beast. Everyone could see that he was now an arrow at the end of its flight, and probably only had one last breath left. Even the current charge was probably just a pose. Although the mystical beast was also seriously injured, it still had the strength to fight back. The fact that it could fling Bai Yexing away just now had already proved this. Now, all it needed was a charge to completely knock Bai Yexing down. However, the black lion mystical beast, which had always been known for its ferocity and violence, could only whimper now. As Bai Yexing approached again, it quickly turned around, tucked its tail between its legs, and scrambled away from the battlefield with its only leg. Everyone sighed, but it was not a sigh of pity, but an appreciation from the bottom of their hearts. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that Residence of Nine Supremes was bound to lose in this battle, and there was no chance of winning. But it was this impossible battle that had allowed this disciple to change the outcome of the battle. He had forcibly reversed fate. Bai Yexing seemed to want to perish together with his opponent, but his opponent knew that he had the upper hand and was naturally unwilling to fight him. From the very beginning, it was entirely Bai Yexing who dominated the battle. "You want to hide? I'll fight harder. Forcing you to fight." He was risking his life in the most extreme way. He was really risking his life to fight, to gamble, to try. In this battle, Bai Yexing had truly engraved the word ferocious into his bones. Every move, every style, every movement was a desperate struggle. Just the sound of death itself was enough to steal people's hearts and souls, and no one could compare. It was also because of this fierceness that he completely suppressed the other party in terms of aura. In a battle between two people, one's cultivation base was important, but so was one's fighting spirit and momentum. Once one's momentum was at a disadvantage, one would almost certainly lose. Bai Yexing, on the other hand, persisted in carrying out his fierceness, completely suppressing his enemy and killing him. Again, if he could not kill his opponent before the mystical beasts returned, he would be attacked from both sides, and there would be no room for negotiation. Then, he turned to fight the mystical beasts. Given his physical condition at that time, it could be said that he had no chance of winning, but he still persisted in the same tactics, continuing to use his fierceness to the extreme, exchanging blows with the mystical beasts. Relying on the fact that he was 2 grades higher than the mystical beasts, he used his body, which was on the verge of collapse, to launch the most extreme and bloody hand-to-hand combat with the mystical beasts. Once again, it was a competition of fierceness, and viciousness. This fierce momentum scared the mystical beasts so much that they did not dare to fight after being seriously injured, and they abandoned the battle and fled. Although mystical beasts were known for their strength, they were still beasts, and they could not escape the instinctive fear of stronger and more vicious existences. And the foundation of this victory was no longer a battle between ordinary warriors, it was purely a battle of courage and mentality. Against people, it was psychological warfare. Against mystical beasts, it was psychological warfare. If he could kill them, he would kill them as soon as possible, and if he couldn't, even if he couldn't kill them, he would scare them to death. Or, it could be said that Bai Yexing's opponents and his opponent's mystical beasts were completely defeated by his extreme tactics. From the beginning to the end, from the moment Bai Yexing fought until now, Bai Yexing had never spoken a word. There was not a single scream or grunt. Even his expression hadn't changed at all. His eyes had always been calm and indifferent. It was as if the wounds on his body were all on someone else's body, and he did not feel anything at all. Even now, when the outcome of the battle had been decided, he still did not speak. He just stood there, waiting for the result to be announced. His indifference sent a chill down the spines of all the onlookers. He was not afraid of a ferocious enemy, nor was he afraid of a monstrous aura, nor was he afraid of any sinister spirits. However, the ferocity hidden under this infinite calmness was enough to send a chill down anyone's spine. Residence of 9 Supremes wins. When Bai Yexing finally heard the words, he breathed a sigh of relief. Then, he could not move, not even a little finger. He was out of breath, covered in wounds, and had lost a lot of blood. With so many negative statuses on him, it was already a miracle that he could hold on until now. Everyone saw that his body, which was as straight as a spear, did not move at all. There was only a gratified smile on his blood-stained face, and he murmured something silently. Then, his body froze. Yin Yang's heart skipped a beat. Bai Yexing's last words were, "Residence of 9 Supremes and never stops." All the onlookers, including Qin Ruogu, were convinced of their defeat and had nothing to say. With such a disciple, it would be strange if the opponent did not win. Everyone had one life, the same bones, the same flesh and blood, the same internal organs, the same brain, and the same thoughts. If one did not dare to fight, but the opponent did, then one would lose. What was the purpose of fighting for the celestial fortune? It was nothing more than to fight for one's pride. There was nothing else. Since the opponent dared to die and risk his life, he was destined to have more chances than the onlookers. It was because the onlookers did not dare to. Qin Ruogu heaved a long sigh, then turned to Yun Yang and said, "Sect leader Yun, Beast Trainer's sect is convinced of our defeat in this match." Yun Yang was visibly moved as he said softly, "I wanted to say thank you for letting me win, but at this moment, it's hard for me to say such courteous words. We've won this battle gloriously, so I won't be so courteous anymore." Qin Ruogu sighed enviously and said, "Sect leader Yun, you should be proud and glorious. With such an excellent disciple, Residence of 9 Supremes deserves the celestial luck banner." At this moment, even Hui Yunfeng, who was on the high platform, had a look of mixed emotions on his face. He was so shocked by the match that he could not recover from it for a long time, and he even forgot the supreme-grade spiritual jade that he had been worrying about. It's worth it to lose the supreme-grade spiritual jade to such a person. Chapter 1100. With a flash of light, the 2 men and 1 beast in the field recovered. Bai Yexing had returned to his snow-white robe. His body had been reconstructed, and his condition was completely restored. His face was calm, and his eyes were calm as he stood there. On the other side, the disciples of Beast Trainer's sect looked at him as if they were looking at a ferocious ghost, their eyes full of horror. As for the mystical beast, it dared to not look at Bai Yexing at all. When it glanced at him, it whimpered and hurriedly lowered its head, not daring to look at the calm face again. Bai Yexing's battle had frightened both the man and the beast out of their wits, and they were terrified. "Sect leader, master, uncle masters, this disciple has accomplished his mission and won the match." Bai Yexing came up to report. Kong Luoyue looked gratified and proud, while the others were full of praise. "Not bad. Not bad at all." Yin Yang praised heavily. "Yexing, your performance in this battle is too outstanding. No one in the first generation of disciples can be better than you in this battle alone. Luoyue, you didn't take this disciple for nothing." Kong Luoyue smiled and said modestly, "Don't praise him like that, boss. Yexing still needs to improve. Don't spoil him." Shi Wuchen and the others looked askance at Kong Luoyue, suddenly wanting to beat him up. Could he be any more pretentious and smug? Yin Yang smiled. "I'm not praising him just because he won the match. It's because this battle should have been Xiuxin's. Even if Xiuxin wasn't the one to fight, I would have chosen Mingxiu." In addition to clearly predicting the difference in strength between the two sides, Yexing also knew Xiuxin's natural weakness as a girl. If he really fought with her in this fierce battle, winning or losing is not important, but mental trauma is inevitable. That's why he stepped forward. This is especially praiseworthy. Yin Yang glanced at Yun Xiuxin and said, "In terms of the cultivation base of all the disciples, although Xiuxin defeated Yexing in the match, if she were the one to fight, she would definitely lose." On this point, everyone nodded their heads repeatedly, and no one questioned it. Even Yun Xiuxin, who had always been proud and arrogant, lowered her head. She knew that her master was right. If she were the one to fight in this battle, not only did he lose, but he was afraid that he would fall into the fear of being devoured by the vicious beasts for a long time. Just by looking at everything that happened in the arena from the sidelines, that kind of ruthlessness was something that he definitely could not bring out. Even if he did, he would definitely not have such an imposing manner. And the victory of this battle lay in this momentum. Because no matter what, his strength could not compare to the other party. Sun Mingxiu was also calculating in his heart. If he were to fight this battle, no matter how calm and careful he was, at most, he would only be able to achieve a result where both sides would suffer. To win was absolutely impossible. Bai Yexing was still indifferent as he said, "Sect leader, you flatter me." Yin Yang smiled and gave Bai Yexing a deep look. Bai Yexing did not negotiate with the mystical beasts, nor did he use the bead he had given him. Instead, he had found another way to win the battle. His quick-wittedness was also worthy of praise. That was because in the disciple battle, if he were to use the pearl to tempt such a combination of Xian beasts, it would probably not be of much use. The battle had been over for a while, but the crowd had yet to recover from the shock. A figure had been lingering in front of them, fighting and struggling with all the means and strength he had. Even when his bones were shattered, he did not care at all, and his expression remained indifferent from the beginning to the end. Indifference. Indifference. Whether it was to people, to things, to himself, or to everything in this world, he did not care at all. It was common knowledge that basically everyone could accept the way of death like being beheaded with a single slash. After all, one would no longer feel anything after the slash, so it did not matter whether one accepted it or not. However, in the process of fighting, he had beaten his own body to a pulp, broken more than 50% of his bones, and not a single part of his body was not injured, but he still persisted in fighting without making a sound. Such a ruthless person was rare in the world. Death was the end of everything. These words weren't just empty words. Once one became impermanent, everything would be over. However, if one's body and mind were to fight in such an environment of unbearable pain, that was secondary. Who could guarantee that the expression on one's face wouldn't change? Therefore, everyone looked at Bai Yexing with inexplicable admiration in their eyes, including many high-level warriors. At this moment, everyone knew that there was a real man of steel in this world. This person, even if you caught him, no matter how you tortured him, even if you smashed all of his bones into pieces, he would definitely not say a word. Everyone was sure that Bai Yexing could do this. There was no doubt about it. After a long while, Hui Yunfeng cleared his throat and said, "The next match is the match of sect leaders." Yin Yang and Qin Ruogu exchanged a glance and rose to their feet at the same time. Sect leader Yun, Beast Trainer's sect has our own unique means. Although they are not worthy of the Fong clan's attention, they do have some power. "You must be careful," said Qin Ruogu. Yin Yang smiled faintly and said casually, "Sect leader Qin, the residence of 9 Supremes has never lacked trump cards. This has been reflected in the Celestial Luck Banner contest. We've been performing all the time, and it seems like we've never been surpassed. Qin Ruogu chuckled, flicked his sleeve, and was the first to leave the arena. Yun Yang's purple robe fluttered in the wind as if he was strolling on clouds as he followed behind. The two of them left the arena together. One had a solemn face, gray hair, and a grave look in his eyes, and it was obvious that he was about to do something important. The other, on the other hand, looked relaxed, tall and slender, and strolled leisurely as if he was going for an outing. This was already an abnormally obvious contrast. Even the people of Beast Trainer's sect could see it, but Qin Ruogu, the sect leader, did not notice it at all. Perhaps he was too immersed in the situation to notice it. Or perhaps he was too concerned about the match. After all, it was related to the last face of Beast Trainer's sect, and he could not afford to lose it. He did not have the energy to worry about other trivial matters. In fact, the only thing that concerned him at the moment was Yun Yang's amazing strength, which was at least one level stronger than his, and it was not impossible for him to be 2 or 3 levels stronger. After all, the strength that Luo Dajiang had shown was stronger than the last time. Who knew if Yun Yang, the leader of Residents of 9 Supremes, did not hide his true strength? In that case, the only thing he could rely on was the divine beast of his sect. Speaking of this divine beast of the Imperial Beast sect, it probably had a great background. It had already existed in the Imperial Beast sect for 4,300 years. Just this age alone was quite impressive. However, it was true that the divine beast was strong, but its temperament was eccentric, making it very difficult to control. If it were not for the fact that he had no other choice, Qin Ruogu really did not want to use this trump card that he had been hiding for a long time. The fate of the whole sect is on you. Please don't make any more trouble. Qin Ruogu prayed in his heart. Chapter 1101. Thinking of the exchange with the divine beast last night, Qin Ruogu felt more or less relieved. The two men stood still in the field. They were facing each other, but not as close as they were in the previous battles. After Qin Ruogu stood still, he instinctively felt that it was not safe enough, so he moved back another 200 feet. Now, there was a distance of 400 feet between them. The distance surprised Yun Yang. Sect leader Qin, are you not ready? As he spoke, he could not help taking a step forward. Wait. Qin Ruogu stopped him from getting any closer and explained amiably, my role in this battle is only to supervise the battle. In other words, as long as you can defeat my mystical beast, it will be your victory. Oh? Yun Yang asked. Mystical beast? Do I need to fight a mystical beast? Almost subconsciously, he dispersed his mystical qi and activated the endless divine art, which was rarely used in actual combat. An ancient bracelet appeared in Qin Ruogu's hand, and he gently stroked it. Then, he began to murmur something. A bright light flashed, and a mountain suddenly appeared in the field. It was a black mountain. Everyone was startled, and when they looked carefully, they found that the black mountain was actually a bear. It was a huge black bear. There was not a single strand of hair on its body, and its whole body was pitch black. Its body was as tall as 250 feet, and its paw alone was almost the size of an ordinary house. Standing there, it looked like a small hill. When the black bear appeared in the field, it raised its huge paw and rubbed its eyes in a daze, then opened its mouth, revealing its fangs that were about 10 feet long, and yawned. Then, it turned its head and gave Qin Ruogu a dissatisfied look. Obviously, this bear was not fully awake yet. Sacred King Bear, our opponent is right in front of you now. Qin Ruogu bowed and said, you only need to defeat him, and we'll win. After that, you can sleep as long as you want. At least, we won't disturb you for a long time. The black bear dug his nose and scooped out a blob of mucus the size of a washbasin. He flicked it away and tilted his head to look at Yun Yang before he proceeded to dig his other nostril. Then, another lump of glistening yellow stuff bounced out, and he raised his head and sneezed. He sniffed and finally faced Yun Yang with a snort when he felt that he was satisfied and comfortable. Yin Yang had already cultivated the endless divine art to its maximum, standing on the other side with a smile on his face as he looked at the black bear. With Yin Yang's fondness for beauty, he was naturally a little obsessed with cleanliness. However, facing such a sloppy black bear, his eyes were filled with joy. It was because deep in Yin Yang's eyes, there was a deep nostalgia, he remembered. Not too long ago, that adorable little bear. Now, I don't know how the two of you are in that forest. If there's a chance, I'll definitely visit you guys in the future. You guys must wait for me, wait for my return. The black bear snorted again, then suddenly opened its mouth and spoke in a thunderous voice. Little fellow, are you the enemy of Beast Trainer sect? Many sects who did not know what was going on, including Yin Yang and his companions, were all startled by the loud voice, without exception. F***CK. This bear can actually speak human language. Is it still King Bear? Is it a man in a bear's skin in disguise? But on second thought, he still felt that it was not right. How could a man have such a body size? After a moment of shock, Yin Yang was overjoyed. It can speak? That's even easier. Compared to his cultivation base, strength, and all his trump cards, Yin Yang was quite confident in his ability to talk. As long as he used it well, it meant that he could communicate well, and he could defeat any enemy with just his mouth. The black bear stared at Yin Yang with its huge eyes, obviously not knowing why the kid in front of it was so happy. Shouldn't you be peeing your pants when you see me? Yin Yang smiled. This battle of the celestial luck banners is just a difference of ranking between sects with celestial luck banners. How can we be considered enemies? Since Senior Bear King has come out, why don't you enjoy the scenery and have some fun outside? If you can make friends along the way, it'll be good for both you and others. The black bear snorted and looked at the little fellow in purple. The more it looked at him, the more it felt like, this little fellow. Why does it feel so familiar? It smells so good. The black bear was not the only one who had this feeling. In the past, the 1,000 illusion monkey that Ji Lingxi had carefully served for more than 3 months, the mystical beasts that the 4 young masters had asked for training, Reddy, the Niello bear, the Moor python, and even the 5 whiteys that had been in Yin Yang's memory. Too many mystical beasts had fallen for this feeling. Yes, there was also the mystical beast that had been ignored in the previous battle. If it had not left for some reason at the beginning of the battle, Bai Yexing would still not have been able to escape the predicament of being attacked from both sides. No matter how fierce and wild he was, there was always a limit to his strength, and he would still be defeated. Could the black bear be an exception now? Swoosh, 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 the black bear could not help sniffling a few more times, the suspicion in his eyes growing stronger. Yin Yang laughed and floated up to a distance of 200 feet away. Standing only 30 to 40 feet away from the bear, he raised his head and said, "Your Excellency Bear King is truly awe-inspiring and admirable." The black panda's face immediately revealed a proud look, and he said very reservedly, "Just so. He could not help sniffing again. What is that smell? No. This is the first time I've seen such a mighty Bear King. I was really shocked when I saw it just now. The so-called top-notch mystical beasts are at most like you, Senior," Yin Yang said sincerely. Receiving Yin Yang's close greeting and being flattered by a certain someone, the King of Bear felt more and more comfortable. His eyes narrowed as he said, "Actually, although this King of Bear is ferocious and has a profound cultivation base, what's rarer is that this King of Bear's handsomeness is rare." Yin Yang looked at the black mountain of flesh and used the limits of his imagination to take another look, but he still could not see how this big fellow was handsome. He laughed and said, "Senior is still too modest. At least among the many bear brothers I've seen, no one is more handsome than Senior Bear King. It's rare to see someone who's even 60 to 70% as handsome as Senior. Well, I haven't seen many beasts of the bear family. Compared to the mini Niello bear and the even more stupid myriad gold bear, the black Bear King in front of me is indeed more outstanding." He was probably lying, at least Yun Yang thought so. The black bear burst into laughter. His voice was so deep that it made the ears of the onlookers tremble. Qin Ruogu grew anxious and cried out, "Bear Saint King, this man in front of you is your opponent." The black bear snorted discontentedly and looked down at Yun Yang. The more he looked at him, the more he felt that this man was clearly a good man. Not only did he have a keen eye, but he also spoke the truth. It was a real and indescribable sense of intimacy. It was so intimate that he almost thought that this man was his blood brother. What was going on? Chapter 1102. Boy, you're too short. It's really inconvenient to talk to you, the black bear said, expressing his heartfelt dissatisfaction at his current state of looking down at Yun Yang. I don't want to do this either, Yun Yang said with a smile. I don't have Senior's ability to change his size at will, but I don't have Senior's ability to change his size at will. What can I do? The black bear thought it made sense, so he said, it's fine if you grow bigger, but I'll just shrink. It's too tiring to talk like this now. As he spoke, his body suddenly shrunk a size, then shrunk another size, and then another breath. Qin Ruogu was so anxious that his eyebrows were almost on fire. How did you make friends with me? Didn't you promise to come out and fight? This is different from what we agreed last night. This. Bear Saint King. Qin Ruogu cried out. Shut up, boy. I know what I'm doing. The black bear turned and gave Qin Ruogu a fierce look. Don't spoil my mood. Qin Ruogu, who had stopped talking, was speechless. As the black bear shrunk smaller and smaller, he could sense Yun Yang's aura more clearly. It was not covetousness, but a sense of intimacy that came from the bottom of his heart. Finally, a charmingly naive, medium-sized black bear appeared in front of Yun Yang. He was as tall as Yun Yang, with chubby arms, legs, neck, and mouth. In any case, Yun Yang still could not tell what was so handsome about him. Could there be such a huge gap between the beauty standards of a bear's eyes and that of a human's? It's okay now, the black bear said casually. What's your name? Do you have wine with you? Wine? Yun Yang was taken aback. This bear actually wants to drink wine? It's a compliment to say that you're humanized, but don't you think you're a little too humanized? Are you really not a man in a bear's skin? Of course I do. Not only wine, but also food. I'll feed you until you're full. Why don't you take it out now? How can we not get drunk when brothers meet? As soon as the black bear opened his mouth, a large clump of saliva dripped down, and more dripped down endlessly. When I think of wine, my mouth. I've forgotten myself, I've forgotten myself. Black Bear wiped his mouth and laughed at himself. Bear Saint King. Qin Ruogu could not bear it any longer. He caught up with him from behind and said, I asked you to come here to fight. Don't forget that this battle concerns the glory of our sect for thousands of years. What's the point of drinking? The motherfucker sect. The black bear exploded. Try calling me the motherfucker sect again. Drinking is the most important thing now. Do you know what is important? Qin Ruogu was struck dumb and dared not say a word. When it came to high-level Xian beasts, the beast control sect was the most hated sect. That was a good thing, but once they were tamed, they would become one of their own. How could they still hate them? This was especially true for a divine beast that had been in the beast-controlling sect for thousands of years. Shouldn't it be used to it? Why, Senior Bear Saint King, I hope you will abide by the spirit of the contract. Qin Ruogu began to play the emotional card. If it were not necessary, I wouldn't use the contract to restrain you, but this battle, the black bear rolled his eyes and grinned. Why don't you try using the contract? Qin Ruogu was speechless. The black bear was very annoyed by Qin Ruogu's attitude. He grabbed the jar of wine Yun Yang took out, slapped open the clay seal, threw his head back, and began to gulp down the wine. Then, bang, the wine jar shattered. However, The inside was as dry as if it had been in the desert for 1,000 years. There was not a single drop of water leaking out. Good wine. King, good wine. The black bear snorted. You've been deceiving me for thousands of years, and you still want to keep it up. Yin Yang knew that there was a change in the situation, so he decided to watch from the sidelines for now. As he brought out the large plates of dishes, he played the role of a good companion. Senior Bear King, come, come. You must try this dish. It tastes great. The black bear patted Yin Yang on the shoulder and said, You're good, really good. Suddenly, he burst into laughter and said cheerfully, I've been in this world for thousands of years, and so far, you're the first person who dares to let me pat you on the shoulder. Ha ha ha. You're good, really good. Then, he patted Yin Yang's shoulder again and said, Good, very good. Yin Yang suddenly felt a pang of discomfort. Has this black bear never enjoyed the feeling of being trusted even a little in his life? But, is it really good to show such kindness when we first meet? In the beginning, my plan was to kill you when you were bewitched and became smaller. But now that you're treating me like this, my conscience is a little uneasy. The black bear kept his body to a medium size, but his mouth grew bigger all of a sudden. He picked up 2 plates of dishes and poured them into his mouth, then drank 2 more jars of wine. After that, he exhaled deeply with a look of nostalgia in his eyes. The wine is good, and you're a good person. I'll fight with you after we finish drinking. You don't mind, do you? I did promise that child over there, it's not good to go back on my word. The black bear asked politely. No, I don't mind. A man's words must be kept, and a man who doesn't keep his word can't stand. Yin Yang said, We're friends, it's not worth minding such a small matter. The black bear was delighted. Good. Suddenly, he opened his mouth wide and came over, biting Yin Yang directly. Facing this sudden change, Yin Yang did not move at all. He was still taking out the wine and dishes, not even his expression changed. The black bear's large nose sniffed Yin Yang's body. After a long time, he retracted his head with an intoxicated expression, his gaze looking at Yin Yang more affectionately now. Obviously, Yin Yang had his own definition of the word friend. Once he had decided on a friend, he would be filled with trust. Yin Yang's action of not moving in the face of danger had increased the black bear's fondness for him. If his previous recognition of Yin Yang was an inexplicable fondness, then it was now a trust towards a friend, even a brotherly bond. It's been thousands of years. Since the old man who lied to me died, today is the happiest day I've ever had. The black bear's gaze was actually overflowing with melancholy. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, how could he believe that a bear, a mystical beast, could have such emotions in its eyes? Yin Yang did not speak. He could not interrupt the bear's recollection at this juncture. Whether it was a human or a mystical beast, memory had always been the most precious treasure. It was not to be desecrated. The black bear drank another pot of wine, his gaze becoming more and more misty. Before the old man died, he asked me to help him protect his sect, to protect his disciples and grand disciples, so that no one could bully them. So many years have passed, I almost can't even remember what the old man looked like. Only this request. Oh, F*King hell. Remember the mobile version of the website, Chapter 225, Be a Friend, page 1/1, bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 1103. Black Bear scolded, None of the brats from this stupid sect are stupid. They don't play ball with me, they don't give me honey, and they don't find monkeys to play with. They don't even let me leave. They only think of me when something happens to them and they can't deal with it. There are always many things in life that are beyond our control, and we can't bear to look back on the past. Yin Yang sighed. The black bear's eyes lit up. That's right. I didn't think of it just now. But senior, you've been living a miserable life all these years. When Yin Yang said that, he deliberately released a wisp of the chi of origin of life. After all, the intention of Yun Yang's words to sow discord was rather obvious. The Black Bear King's human-like behavior was rather obvious. Judging from the human-like behavior of the black bear, it was reasonable for him to turn hostile immediately. With the addition of the chi of origin of life, Yun Yang would naturally have more leeway. But Yun Yang's concern was unfounded. The black bear sighed as if he had found a bosom friend. It's not just miserable, it's like I'm in prison. The last time this old man came out was probably more than 300 years ago. This bunch of black-hearted turtle eggs. Come, let's drink. Come, let's eat. Come, all around them, the crowd looked at the man and the bear, eating and drinking to their heart's content. They were all dumbfounded. What are they doing? Aren't you going to fight? Why are you eating and drinking now? Are you going to have a drinking competition to see who can drink more? Or are you going to have a competition to see who can eat more? Then, they looked at Qin Ruogu, who was standing beside them like a fool. He did not even dare to approach them, let alone urge them. His face was filled with hesitation, shame, anger, and embarrassment. Who is the sect leader of Beast Trainer sect? Is it Yun Yang? It's all upside down. Qin Ruogu, you've just confidently put on the airs of an expert and released your mystical beast to duel with someone, but in the end, the mystical beast made a high-profile appearance and went out to drink with someone. As the sect leader, do you feel embarrassed or not? Could he be any more embarrassed? Yun Yang continued to circulate the endless divine art, and the area of effect gradually expanded. The expression on the black bear's face became more and more relaxed. In the end, it simply lay down on the ground, prostrating on the ground with only its mouth sticking out to eat and drink. It rolled around comfortably. The black bear did not mind exposing the most vulnerable part of a mystical beast, its belly, in front of Yun Yang. It drank the wine and ate the meat, reminiscing about the past. It was so satisfied that it was about to fall asleep. Qin Ruogu, on the other hand, broke out in a cold sweat, and soon, his clothes were soaked with sweat. The maximum strength that Luo Dajiang had displayed was already at the level of a Saint King, and Yun Yang, who had displayed a strength that was even higher than that, had to be close to the level of a Saint King, even if his maximum strength was slightly weaker. What if he had a divine weapon in his hand and used it on you? Then, everything would be over, but he didn't dare to remind him. The black bear pretended not to hear him, and when he reminded him again, the black bear directly slapped him. His heart was tired. It was really tiring. That was the only feeling that Qin Ruogu had now. On the spectator stand, the people from Beast Trainer's sect were also dumbfounded by the current situation. Is this still a fight? Please forgive my ignorance, I really can't see it. On the other hand, Yun Yang was still talking incessantly, and he had already reached the point where he said, if you're not happy, you can live somewhere else. Qin Ruogu was about to go crazy. Is he trying to poach me? How could he be so brazen? Could he be any more deranged? No. The black bear was a man of principle. Senior Bear King, if you're willing. Yun Yang changed to a voice transmission, you can go to the residence of 9 Supremes after today, and I'll help you transform. The black bear sat up and stared at Yun Yang with his big round eyes. Are you serious? Generally, when a mystical beast's cultivation base reaches the level of Beast King, the first thing they do is to transform. Poor me, I'm already a Saint King, but I still can't transform. When he asked this question, everyone heard it. Qin Ruogu could only cry in his heart, this is bad. This is bad. What are you talking about? What do you mean by, for real? Good heavens. I'm so bored and worried. With a faint smile on his face, Yun Yang slightly opened a gap in his divine sense space, and a peculiar aura immediately emerged. Although Yun Yang immediately closed it, the black bear had already jumped to his feet and stared at Yun Yang with his big eyes full of pleasant surprise. Yun Yang raised the wine jar and said, "We are friends." His words were sincere and meaningful. Yes, yes, yes. The black bear replied happily. We are good friends. Ha ha ha. At this point, the black bear's attitude had changed subtly again. Although he had behaved amiably before, there was always a sense of condescension in his tone, but now, he was no longer so. Yin Yang put down the wine jar and said solemnly, since I've gained Brother Bear's approval, everything is negotiable. After this battle is over, you can come to me at any time to solve the problem, and I'll make sure Brother Bear gets what you want. I believe Brother Bear understands that I mean what I said, and I have the ability to do it. Then, a rumbling sound rang through heaven and earth. It was an oath made by the heavenly Tao. The black bear was so touched that his eyes turned red. I don't have much time left, only a few thousand years at most. If I don't transform, I won't have the chance anymore. Unexpectedly, I met a good person here. This was a vow to heaven's way. This brother was too honest. Otherwise, how could he have such a pleasant smell? Brother Bear, our agreement is a promise, but we still have to do what we should do later. When the battle comes later, I won't be merciful just because we hit it off. I hope Brother Bear can understand this. Yin Yang said solemnly, our residents of 9 Supremes will lose everything if we lose. So, I can't be merciful. If I hurt Brother Bear, please don't be offended. The black bear waved his paw and said, no, no, no. We are friends. If Yin Yang had said this before the vow to heaven's way, the result would have been the opposite, and it would have triggered the black bear's negative emotions. However, it was said after the vow to heaven's way, so the effect was very different. Whether we win or lose in this battle, I'll help Brother Bear to get rid of the shackles, so I hope Brother Bear can do your best and not humiliate this battle, Yin Yang said seriously. Yin Yang's face was full of righteousness. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.